government. In the context of democracy, this may not be something we would say is so significant to celebrate. But in the context of Africa, and particularly in the context of West Africa, this is certainly a milestone that is quite significant, and that requires us to continue to reflect on how we even improve, consolidate, and sustain our democracy and peace. The need for such reflections on peace and democratic consolidation in Ghana have even become more critical given the overwhelming evidence around the world, and particularly in West Africa, about democratic recession. Unfortunately, as a nation, Ghana, like many other countries, is faced with serious problems of hate speech, misinformation, disinformation, and polarizing narratives that do not only undermine democratic ethos, but certainly have the potential to weaken the pillars of peace and social cohesion. In the specific case of mis- and disinformation, the scope of deliberate efforts to distort the information ecosystem in Africa is witnessing an alarming increase. What makes the situation even more alarming is the fact that Ghana, which is in West Africa, is certainly located within the geographic scope that is becoming the epicenter of a lot of disinformation campaigns. According to a recent report by the Africa Center for Strategic Studies, for example, while there were 15 documented campaigns, mis- and disinformation campaigns targeting North Africa, 33 targeting East Africa, 21 each targeting Central and Southern Africa, there were as many as 72 campaigns targeting 13 West African countries, including Ghana. These malicious campaigns are from both internal and external sources and would certainly get worse in the lead up to the 2024 elections. This is because across the world, there are many organizations that have been set up to perpetrate mis- and disinformation campaigns, ostensibly to disrupt elections. For example, one private Israeli group called Team George is reported to have implemented disinformation campaigns to disrupt about 20 African elections in the last 9 years alone. Unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, Ghana has many of the conditions that foster mis- disinformation, hate speech, and polarizing narratives. And I would just want to go through a few. First of all, we have a very polarized political environment in which quite often truth and facts don't matter. And in that same context, sometimes perpetrators of falsehood and hateful content are actually even celebrated. We have a highly polarized and partisan traditional media landscape that is faced with severe sustainability challenges. As we speak, we have close to 600 FM stations, more than 100 television stations. We know about the newspapers and the various online platforms. I often say that we are a nation of about 32 million people. Nigeria has about over 200 million people. But when it comes to radio stations and television stations, I think we even have far more than Nigeria has. Well, for the sake of pluralism, we would say this is not a bad idea. But when it becomes difficult to regulate the environment, then it can be problematic. We also share boundaries with countries that are targets of massive disinformation campaigns as they go through, the democratic security issues and governance issues. We have a growing number of social media users thanks to the increasing internet access. We have thousands of educated people or young people who are unemployed and can be drafted for malicious activities easily. And we have a large diasporan population who engage in our political conversations and quite often would use social media for things that are not positive. So we face a challenging situation ahead of this year's elections and beyond. And if the situation is not confronted robustly, the consequences could be dire. Mr. Chairman, I am not saying all these to scare us or to portray a very hopeless situation. Far from that. I'm just trying to sound the alarm bells and to draw our attention to the fact that we have a task ahead of us, which we must dutifully and effectively discharge in order to protect our democracy, preserve our peace, secure our stability, and promote our prosperity. This is why I am so grateful for your presence today. Today's forum forms part of ongoing efforts to deal with the growing phenomenon of hate speech, mis- and disinformation, and polarizing narratives, and their potentially dire consequences for Ghana's peace, stability, and democratic consolidation. We are here because we know that there is a problem. And we are here also because we know collectively we can brainstorm, build synergy, and act together to counter the threat posed by hate speech, mis- and disinformation, and polarization. This is why we are profoundly grateful to the Ford Foundation for providing us with the support that is enabling us to convene this forum, and indeed to undertake other activities within a project that we are implementing with the support of the foundation. Through the support from the Ford Foundation, we are training 100 journalists across the country to enable them build the capacity that is required to help them use the media to support efforts at countering hate speech, mis- disinformation, and polarizing narratives, especially ahead of our elections. Other activities under the same project being supported by the Ford Foundation are that within the next few months, we will be holding a series of forums that we are calling the Regional Youth Festivals Against Polarization and for Peace. We are also organizing a number of training activities and engagement with civil society. We are producing a number of short videos in local languages to create public awareness about the phenomenon of mis- disinformation and hate speech. And then, of course, we are also going to be offering support to a number of radio stations to support with public education and awareness campaigns. I wish to also express my profound gratitude to the leadership and staff of the institutions that are partnering us for this forum, namely the National Peace Council, the National Commission for Civic Education, the National House of Chiefs, the Queen Mother's Foundation, the Ghana Journalists Association, the Christian Council of Ghana, the Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council, the Office of the National Chief Imam, the Ghana Federation of Disability Organizations, and the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. And of course, as I did acknowledge from the beginning, the presence of the leadership of other institutions is an indication of the commitment of these other institutions. The Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice, the Ghana Armed Forces, the Ghana Immigration Service, and of course, as we can see, a lot of our traditional leaders gathered here. And to all of you, we say we are grateful, and we believe that we can continue with the collaboration that would secure our peace and get our democracy sustained and strengthened. I have no doubt that working together, we would successfully deal with the challenges of hate speech and polarization to keep our democracy stable and our country peaceful. Once again, I welcome all of you. Thank you very much for coming, and I wish all of us a fruitful deliberation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Suleiman Abraima, Executive Director of the Media Foundation for West Africa. Another round of applause for him, ladies and gentlemen. I would now like to invite up here Mr. George Amo, the Executive Secretary of the National Peace Council, who is also the chair for this morning's event. Please, a round of applause as he comes.
Good morning. I think my brother Sule has ably established the protocols, and with the kind permission of all of us, I would want to stand in those protocols. But permit me to acknowledge Mr. Whittle. When I was at Shiraj and I was a district officer. He was the regional director, and we are grateful how far the Lord has brought us. And my senior, George, God bless you. So on behalf of the chairman and the board of the National Peace Council, ladies and gentlemen, democracy across the world is suffering. When you watch television and you see what is happening in countries across the globe, nobody will tell you that democracy is under attack. I think the latest incident that happened in the United States of America should be enough warning that democracy is indeed under attack. And if you come to the West Africa sub-region, I think my brother Sule has said a lot. We are confronted with the threat of violent extremism, terrorism, and their associated violence. And if you consider what is happening in the region, ladies and gentlemen, the key driver of this violence across our region is the issue of hate speech, hate language, divisive comments, you and me, we and they, and these are the issues driving violence. These are the issues that are confronting our democracy and making the dividend not fully realized. I think if we have people who determine day after day that they will use tools to destroy our democracy, then it stands to reason that forces of goodwill, forces of peace, should also rally to ensure we counter such narratives. And I think we are here because of this reason, that we will pool together our resources, we will pool together our energies to counter the narratives that is fast detracting from the gains of democracy. Seniors around, ladies and gentlemen, it is in the light of the issues around us, and particularly the pending elections in December. That is why the Media Foundation for West Africa, the National Peace Council, the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, and our partners have decided to launch the multi-stakeholder coalition today, which will take place in the next few moments, to pool our energies together to counter this negative narrative. I think that God has given us unique opportunity to get our country on track. I believe strongly that we are here not because Ghana, we are so unique, we are so timid. People describe us as timid people. We can't. No, I'm not sure that is the reason. However, I believe that things like what we are doing today are those things that together make us resilient to withstand against the forces that try always to detract from our democracy. So we have to continue this path. And I want to encourage the state institutions relevant for keeping the peace of our country, particularly as we approach the elections in December. I think the Electoral Commission, the National Commission for Civic Education, the National Media Commission, the National Peace Council, all of us, in the state agencies, should do all that we can to ensure integrity. It's important. If you do that, you reduce the avenues for people.
Application for interlocutory injunction and a full and complete hearing of the present suit. Yes. This is our ruling.
Lord, we are grateful.
Lord, we are also grateful. Ismail, we are grateful too.
This application is also agenda signed. It's agenda signed. Now, panel that will hear the substantive matter, you need to know that unless processes are fully filed, a panel cannot come to consider it. It should be ready for hearing. So when can you get that done?
I think we can file our civil case within 2 weeks from today. We were thinking maybe we should bring an application to have the two cases consolidated so that we will have the issues dealt with at the same time.
Spread abusive hate language. I decide the same. Our children decide the same. We encourage society. This country would be safe. And we cannot do anything more than that. I want to remind you that our country, Ghana, in the latest peace index that came up, though we reduced in terms of score, but in terms of position, the National Peace Council was ranked the first in the sub-region. Yes, the score wasn't good. There were times, you remember when we were in secondary schools, primary schools, you can use a lower score to become the first person. That is what happened to us. So it is not all that encouraging. We used a lower score, though we became the first in West Africa, which is not too good. The last year, the score that placed us as second is superior to the score we got this year. So you understand me? So it's not all that good. So let us work hard and ensure we are able to improve not only our position, but also our score. Countering hate speech and polarization narrative. We have a duty. We are here. The few moments we are here to spend, please, I want to court your indulgence. Let us envisage how we can do all that is possible to ensure we keep our country safe. The National Peace Council is doing quite a lot of things to ensure we get to this place. One, this year, we intend to work closely together with the Media Foundation for West Africa and our other partners to ensure that we do all that we can to sustain the peace of our country. Second, we are going to continue our dialogues. Indeed, from next week, the United Nations Office for West Africa and the Sahel will be in Accra, and we are going to start a series of dialogues, beginning from Tamale. So next week, by this time, we should be in Tamale preparing to organize a dialogue with our compatriots there. The following week, we'll be in Kumasi. We will move down to Cape Coast, to Ho, and to Accra. We are going to do the same with ECOWAS. ECOWAS will be here, and we will be in Sunyani, we will be in Kumasi. And let me end. Mr. Secretary, my board members, eminent members here, that let us hold this country, not for ourselves alone, but for the generations unborn. I would want to reiterate that God has given us the opportunity. Let us cherish that and keep our country together. We cannot afford. Should there be anything here, I don't know where. Togo is now unsafe. I'm not sure Burkina Faso would open their doors to us. La Côte d'Ivoire, they may. But even when you go, I'm not sure you are going to get the peace you require from there. And if you turn south here, if you don't know how to swim, like I don't know where we will be. May the God of the heavens help us to keep our country together for ourselves and for generations to come. Thank you very much as I accept to chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Another round of applause for Mr. George Amo, Executive Secretary, National Peace Council. Let me mention again that this event is being broadcast live across the country by the Ghana Television and GBC radio stations across all the 16 regions in the country. Thank you very much, GBC, for this support. We really appreciate that. I would also like to acknowledge the presence of some reps of political parties that we have. I think that I see representatives from the NDC, PNC, and CPP already in here. A number of civil society organizations have also joined us. We would acknowledge them as we go along. I would now like to invite, as I said, this event is supported by the Ford Foundation, and we have the Senior Program Officer, the Office of West Africa of Ford Foundation, Mr. Mark Ikemenjima Davesaki. Please, a round of applause as he comes up.
I would just go after Mr. George Amo and stand on the existing protocol. I hope that the protocol will continue to remain as we all stand on it. I bring you greetings from Nigeria, where I live and work at the Ford Foundation. And I would like to thank the Media Foundation for West Africa for inviting me and for offering me the stage to say a few words. I would like to specially greet our Queen Mothers and chiefs who are present here. For all the reasons that you gave, Mr. George, I believe that our royalties have a particularly important role to play in the matter that we're discussing this morning. So I want to specially recognize you for the role that I believe you have to play. So let me say a few words just to complement what has been said by the two previous speakers. The first is to say that, the intentional manipulation of information for political purposes is a concern all over the world. As both Suleimana and Mr. George have just said, it is a continuous threat to democracy, not just here in Ghana, but in other parts of West Africa and around the world. In recognition of this, particularly this component of disinformation, but also in recognition of the broader question of polarization, the Ford Foundation in 2021 established a global initiative on polarization, working with the Institute for Integrated Transitions based in Barcelona. there were three things that we wanted to achieve from this work. The first is to learn more about the way that polarization manifests and how we can draw on the lessons of different interventions that have been taken by different actors around the world to try and resolve it. But we also established this initiative because we recognize that polarization is a hyper problem. It is one of those problems that can be in the way of solving every other problem. And I think for Ghana, just like Nigeria and other parts of the world, when you have a polarized environment, it becomes a barrier for being able to make progress on the things that matter to people's everyday lives. And I think both previous speakers have established this fact. Related to that is the third piece around a policy and developmental paralysis that happens as a consequence of polarization. You know, I think, I'm not sure that that is said here in Ghana, but in Nigeria and other places, people talk about a corrupt official as being my corrupt official. So as long as he is my corrupt official, it's acceptable to me. And that is a major problem to achieving developmental outcomes in many places around the world. I want to spend 2 minutes to talk about disinformation in the context of elections, because I think a big chunk of what you intend to discuss here today is related to this. So first is this piece around a dangerous kind of ordering, you know, in which political actors appropriate structural differences to advance their political goals. And I'm talking here about ethnicity, religion, class, and race alongside other structural questions. You know, one example is this idea of a hustler movement that was used to appropriate class in East Africa to advance political outcomes. And, you know, that could really set up a tension between people of different classes and the perception that anyone who is in a certain income category is automatically a bad person. So just to say that, you know, this kind of ordering can really be risky for many countries, including Ghana. The second is this tarnishing and discrediting of other political candidates, and sometimes, you know, this can shift away from the focus on substantive issues to focusing on the individual and their person, and which is why I really like the flyer that's being circulated here about focusing on the issues, because sometimes the political conversation really kind of shifts away from the substantive issues that affects people's everyday lives and kind of focuses on people and where they're from and who they represent, etc., etc. The third piece is the rigged election narrative, and this narrative is now becoming a global phenomenon. It happens in Nigeria, it's happened here, it's happened in Kenya, it's happened in the US, and it's happened in Kenya, in Brazil. And when I look at my work in the Global Initiative on Polarization, the one thing that scares me the most is this piece around rigged election narratives. We have seen in many places how this narrative of rigged elections, on the one hand, undermines trust in the institutions that manage elections. On the other hand, it increases the risk that the results of elections can, you know, result in political violence in different countries. And then the last point that I would make about disinformation in the context of election is this piece around how governments receive disinformation. I think in many places around the world, there's a reference to the question of national security. This piece about foreign interference, and I think Sulemana mentioned it when he was talking about targeted campaigns to influence electoral outcomes in countries. You know, this piece around other countries are doing something to influence the outcome of elections in one country. But the other piece is this question of insult narratives. And I wanted to just highlight this piece because increasingly we're seeing laws in different countries that are specifically about insult. And unfortunately, in some cases, the laws about insult are about insult on the president or other significant political officials, which in some sense could be a dangerous thing to do in places in our region. Let me go on to just say a little bit about where we have seen that disinformation and narratives that are toxic could lead to violence. We're all, intricately familiar with the genocide in Rwanda. I think it's very difficult to separate the role that radio played in that particular instance with the fallout that happened in that country. The second that I would reference is example of the 2007 elections in Kenya, where this narrative of rigged elections led to violence in that country. And in all of these cases, we are talking about very high levels of fatality that could derail a country's developmental trajectory. So together with IFIT, the Institute for Integrated Transitions, we've been thinking actively about this question of addressing, broadly speaking, polarization, but also the specific questions around dis and misinformation. And so there are three active ways in which we're thinking about addressing this problem. The first is looking at the idea of structural reforms. In some countries, systems of equity have been put in place as a way to create equal opportunities for citizens, in order to remove the feeling of exclusion from opportunities and government positions and what have you. And so the notion of structural reforms, particularly in a post-conflict context, I think is one of the ways we've seen that have been effective in addressing polarization, and also minimizes the effectiveness of disinformation and other type of hate speech. The second is outreach and dialogue efforts, and I think Mr. George talked extensively about needing to talk to each other, to recognize each other, to engage with each other. And then the third piece is facts and narratives, under which I believe this particular conversation falls. Let me conclude by saying a couple of things. What do we do in order to address the risk that disinformation and polarization poses for our country? The first is to recognize our shared humanity. I think, as you've said, Mr. George, first, we're all human beings. And so, regardless of our opinions and thoughts and positions on issues, we should recognize first that we're all human beings. The second is to recognize our shared history. I would say for the moment that we're all Ghanaians. And I think that comes first. The fact that we're all Ghanaians comes first. We can recognize the role that colonialism and our colonial history plays in how we came together. But in doing that, we should recognize that as of today, we're all Ghanaians. And I think that is consequential and it matters. The third thing that I would say is that we should recognize that elections are not do or die. It's a competition, and one person will win. No matter the instruments that you use, only one person will emerge as winner. And therefore, we should conduct ourselves in elections keeping this in mind, that no matter what we do, only one person will emerge winner. Unfortunately, when we adopt instruments that can destroy our country, even if we win, we would not have a country to govern. And I think I really like the fact that you emphasize that piece in your speech. The fourth point that I would make in terms of things that we can do is to educate ourselves about the facts. And today a lot of facts were put out here. Facts have been threatened in a post-truth environment, but I think it's important to continue to recognize and acknowledge the facts. And the people with the mechanisms and instruments should promote and share the facts as widely as possible. But also when things are shared out, and I specifically want to mention WhatsApp groups, as the places where a lot of very bad information is shared, and unfortunately it's very difficult to track. For individuals who receive information, I think it's important to fact check before spreading that information. I know you do fact checking and other institutions do fact checking, but at an individual level, it's helpful to check the information for accuracy before distributing to other people. And then the final point on what we should do is to improve our regulation. And I say this with a little bit of caution, because I recognize that regulation can be a two-edged sword. On the one hand, it could be used as an instrument of censorship in terms of blocking free speech. But on the other hand, it could really be a tool for reducing the harms that we see in the ways in which information is spread on social media. And so in that sense, I think that it's useful to think about how our regulation can be a way to prevent the spread of false information. Let me just say one point here, and to the regulators in the room. I think one point that we could benefit from is conceptual clarity on what disinformation, misinformation, hate speech, and other polarizing narratives mean. I think it's important that political actors get that information from you directly, because then it provides the guardrails in terms of how information is developed and shared. Finally, I want to toe the line of Mr. George and just say that the information that we share today has short-term, oftentimes they have short-term intentions. You know, for now, the thinking may be about the elections that are upcoming, but we should recognize that the information that we share have long-term implications. And two things that I would mention here. One is that we are unintentionally socializing the next generation with the type of things that we say about other people. And so we should expect that the next generation will grow up adopting that information in their minds and thinking about those people in the ways in which we have communicated that information. The second is to say that the things that we say today and the harms that they cause can significantly impact on the trajectory of this country. So, having said all of that, I want to just say once again, thank you to you all, to Sulemana and the team at Media Foundation, and to all of you actually for offering me the floor to say a few words on this matter. And I wish you the best in the conversation this morning.
Thank you very much, Dabisaki, representing Ford, the West Africa office. We are grateful for the support for this important conversation. It's important for me also to mention that there is a representative of the NPP here. I need to ensure that balance. And so thank you very much for also prompting me on that. At this point, I'd like to invite Nana Ama Sewa Bonsu, Queen Mother of Ofinsu Kaira, and the president of the Queen Mother's Foundation, to make a statement. A round of applause for her as she comes.
Good morning to you all. Reverend Chair of the National Peace Council, Executive Director of Media Foundation for West Africa, representative from the Ford Foundation, members of the Coalition Against Hate Speech, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my traditional rulers, the Queen Mothers, media ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the MFWA and the National Peace Council for organizing this event. It's very important. I'm honored to be here to talk about important issues dealing with hate speech. That's my problem with the hate speech and misinformation. Being a traditional ruler, and we being in the villages, obi abema hate speech, the ote one until the year can say, no are taking no. Say yes, say. Wabra asem no enye no kre. Obi timi didi obi atem. Penimo kra no didi natem. Just because wetima comedian ti, ana otimi tronti no didi obi atem. Dealing with hate speech, false information, and propaganda as we approach Ghana's 2024 elections, we need to protect the fairness of elections from these threats. Where are we heading to? Hate speech and false information have harmed democratic values in many West African countries, including Ghana. And talk about disabled. These harmful messages spread through social media, traditional media, and word of mouth, aim to destroy voter trust and create conflict among our citizens. As citizens and protectors of democracy, we must face this challenge directly. Fair elections are essential for a democratic system, ensuring that people's voices are heard and respected. Today, we gather to recognize the dangers of false information and propaganda and to show our commitment to protecting our elections. We must fight these threats together, all of you. Support truth and accountability and ensure every Ghanaian's voice is heard. Every Ghanaian's voice should be heard. Ghana's media landscape includes many channels, from traditional media to online platforms. Online platforms, yeah, they turn there, baby. Yeah, they did atem. Obi kana some baby, near the atem. TikTok, yeah, they turn near mano. Ghana had the atem. But with so much information, it can be hard to tell what is true. We appeal to the government to take proactive steps to combat false information, and social media influencers can help spread the importance of media literacy. Fighting this hate speech, decisive narratives, false information, and propaganda in Ghana's 2024 elections is shared responsibly. Let us use our strength and commitment to the democracy, confront these threats and the determinations and unity. Why? My problem is the propaganda. That's my problem. Hey, ni pass me sense wo bo won teda. Enti yenya wa nyina ya sede se betimi aboa amasa he speech nkwala no at the end of the day na nkwala no yom begeni. Utifie twatro wo ba no obesu atro die. Utifie afade asi wani mu didi pennatem akwala ne de be na onso obesua. Enti ye nyina ya sede se wo se saade no ye gyan. Ti ye media me appeal to government. Se saade so wo kwan bi obetima fa so amasa ye be ye elections yi. Se saade no media ne TikTok no so obetima ye hu bibia. Onka wonye hu bibi. Any media for ne yete ho aye di mpanifo atem no mesra ban so ono so onfa ho adwene no on stop saade na asomdwe mra e ba ye ma ye ntimi ntumnika. Peace ye nto na duro wo pharmacy shop. Ye nto duro wo pharmacy shop me dem ko pe peace e duro nya bi. Ti ye nyina ye nka ehomom na afei no ye ma asomdwe mra na elections na e ba no enya tokwa. Unua wa MPP wa NDC wa CPP a enche se wo ye wo bonsam. Mum ye nyina ye nka mom. Na afei yesa so a ye ni yenim enkwala no amu yusu wo mo no yesra mo munya enkwala no. Wo mu wi ye num tie o. Ni ande ye gina ho ni ye kotokwa se MPP NDC wa aman. Wo mu wi so a ni ye num ye ti. Ti mesra mo mum ye nyina ye nya ba ko medam.
Thank you very much, Nana. Nana, what can you say? Thank you so much. Another round of applause for Nana Masewa Bonsu, Queen Mother of Ofinso Kaira and President of the Queen Mothers Foundation. Thank you so much. I think this was the message that the Basaki was referring to, and Queen Mother has also emphasized. The Media Foundation for West Africa, during each election year, we do monitoring of campaign language on radio, and over the years, like Nana pointed to, what we see is insulting and offensive remarks, almost leading the kinds of indecent expression or abusive language on radio. We also have a lot of unsubstantiated allegations, like she talked about, and then inciting comments and provocative remarks. It's a shared responsibility for all of us to see how we deal with these before, they escalate, increase tension, and probably also incite people to violence. So thank you once again, Anna. At this point, I would like to invite our keynote speaker for this morning, and he will be speaking on the topic Hate Speech, Polarizing Narratives and Democratic Consolidation in Ghana. We are happy to have Mr. George Sapon, Executive Secretary, National Media Commission, actually the media regulator in Ghana. So a round of applause as he comes up. Thank you.
Abi, thank you very much. I think that whoever invented the phrase, all protocols observed, did that for me. When you have a star-studded assembly like this, I wondered how I could go with greeting everybody, except to thank all of you for being here, and also for Sule, George, the Media Foundation, and the Peace Council, and the entire team. When I say this, Sule and George know why it is so significant for me. The two leading institutions that are organizing this is also my life. I was one of the young people that Professor Kwame Kakari used to set up the Media Foundation for West Africa. So people close to me know that when you see me wearing this, I wear it in honor of Professor Kakari. Anybody who knows the professor knows that he's defined my entire career, and I'm grateful to him. It just happened that yesterday was his 79th birthday, and I wish all of us would just clap and say amen to his name. I know Prof will eat me up when he gets to know this, but in his absence, I can indulge myself to say we thank God for bringing him into our lives and to this nation. For the National Peace Council, it just happened that I was one of the young people who created the institution. So we're just a couple of us, and I've told this story before, but I want to highlight it as many times as I can in order to honor those people from whom we got the idea. The unfortunate incident had happened in Dagbon, and a group of young people connected with UNDP had decided that we would use that as the entry point into the peace project in Ghana. So we went up north. You speak to the youth groups, they say they did this to us, we were going to retaliate, and NOPAC said we should not do this. The women group said NOPAC organized to protect us. What is NOPAC? NOPAC turned out to be Northern Regional Peace Advisory Committee, headed by a young Catholic priest called Father Thaddeus, working under another priest called Father Clement. So when we returned, please don't tell anybody, because I would deny and they'll believe me. Maybe under the influence of a few thoughts of whiskey or wine or whatever it was, this strange idea hit us. Why don't we replicate this at the national level? So we came up with a concept called the Architecture for Peace. And we did this under a very brilliant and charismatic Nigerian guy called Ozonia Ojielo. Ozonia is now the UNDP resident representative in Rwanda. So this is how we came to be involved. I tell you this story, of course, for my own joy, but it's also to illustrate that I saw the beginning of these institutions. And if anybody had told me that in my own lifetime, they were going to grow the institutions to what I have seen, I couldn't have believed it. Especially for Sule, that Kwame Karikari himself set up an organization and somebody to step in, and Sule's small shoes. But anybody who knows the foundation knows how far. And I think Prof himself is extremely proud of you, Sule, and the team. Congratulations, and they will pray for your lives. Fellow citizens and friends, we've been invited to reflect on the question of how do we counter hate speech and polarizing narrative in order to consolidate Ghana's democracy. And we've heard some really brilliant statements from Sule, from George, from our brother from, are you Nigerian? So, Mark Ike. And then Nana crowns it all. I feel extremely inspired. And I think that there's very little for me to add other than add my voice to what is the way forward. But I need to make two quick points before we proceed. Number one is that don't think that hate speech, polarizing narratives is new. It's not. For those of you who are Christians, I want to encourage you to go back to the Bible. Read 1 Kings chapter 21. There you will meet a king called King Ahab. King Ahab wanted the vineyard of his neighbor called Naboth. Naboth would not give him the vineyard. The king grieved, he worried, he wouldn't eat. The wife, called Jezebel, decided that he would solve the problem because he could not let the king die in her house. What did Jezebel do? She started writing letters and talking to people, inciting them with dishonest information about Naboth. Why Naboth hated the Lord and why he ought not to live. Why Naboth was the one undermining everything in that society. In the end, Naboth was executed. King Ahab had a vineyard. This is the Bible. So when we talk about polarizing narrative and hate speech, disinformation and matters like that, we are not dealing with a modern phenomenon. Why is it different today? It is because of the nature of the technology we have and the anonymity that it offers people to hide behind it. When I say it is not a peculiarly Ghanaian phenomenon in modern times, we don't need to look far. It's just a couple of days ago that in the United States of America, there was an attempted shooting of former President Trump. But watch it very closely. It followed years of systematic polarization of American society, in itself led by Trump himself. When Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul Pelosi, was attacked by a criminal, Trump was celebrating it. In fact, Donald Trump's son said that they should ignore Paul because it is possible that he had gone after somebody's wife and this was the source of the attack. He said it. Okay? Just a week before Trump was attacked, Robinson, who is the North Carolina candidate for governor, actually said publicly that some folks need killing. He's Republican. So of course, if he said some people need killing, I'm sure that as far as he's concerned, the killing would have been a good thing if it had succeeded, except that it would have been the wrong person. So this is how society grows. Let us understand that we are dealing with a big problem that is not entirely a Ghanaian problem. But the very fact that it is old and international also tells you the complexity of it. What do we have to do? As I have said, our colleagues have explained this issue thoroughly. I do not intend to repeat all the things that they have said. So I just want to move and suggest 4 things. Before I get into this, I already want to plead for indemnity. Because some of the things I will say, I know you would not like it. But I need to be truthful to this society. First of all, let us try to explain the concept a bit so that we know what we are dealing with, even though the issues have been explained. And I'm going to do this because I want to center a bit more on polarizing narrative. When we deal with hate speech, it's a very technical frame. So we are dealing with communication that belittles or discriminates against individuals or groups based on attributes such as race, religion, ethnicity, or gender. If you apply this very strictly and look at the situation that we have in Ghana, very few of the circumstances that we deal with will technically qualify as hate speech, particularly from the point of view of the law. So we may not be able to punish too many people. In fact, in the last election, our own study and the EU's monitoring indicated that there was no example of hate speech in Ghana, even though we thought that there were a few examples that would qualify. But that's not the point we're interested in. We want to center on polarizing narrative. And I'm going to just make a couple of points that I really want to plead for your patience. When we speak of polarizing narrative, we are talking about discourse that deepens divisions within society by emphasizing differences and fostering that notion that George spoke about, we and them. And I want us to please look into our society fairly closely. The danger with polarizing narrative is that the people who do it feel a sense of righteousness about it. If it is on the basis of faith, they feel very strongly that they have a God-given duty to do it. So if it is by a Christian who feels that non-Christians won't go to heaven because his Bible tells him that there is the only way and the truth, he says that with that conviction, without knowing that for people who do not believe in that religion, you are offending them. And that you are polarizing the society along religious lines. If you say this to any preacher, he would disagree with you, he would be angry. But that is the reality of our situation. If you watched what goes on in this country, young people insulting chiefs, insulting the clergy, insulting leadership, they feel strongly that they are entitled to express their angst against how the society is managed. And that is the danger of polarization of narrative. Because the one doing it is not doing it because they feel it is wrong. They honestly feel that there's a justification for what they are doing. And the part that I'm sure will annoy some people, but I have to speak the truth. If you followed what happened with the young lady at Wesley Girls and the fasting, and how the Christian churches banded together, what were we hearing? Oh, if I'm lying, tell me. Okay? And the Christian community that was doing this felt strongly that they were right. What they didn't know was how did Muslims who are Ghanaians, who are taxpayers, and who believe that these schools are Ghana Education Service schools managed by our collective taxes. You understand? But statements that suggested that children of Muslims were not entitled to their religion and to be in these schools never seemed offensive to the church leaders. But the same Muslims and the Christians and the traditionalists got together to use polarizing speech against gays and lesbians. And the same sense of self-righteousness makes us feel right that it is okay to call them beasts. This is animalistic. And we don't see it as polarizing. This is the danger with polarization of the narrative. As I've said, each one of us that is doing it feels very strongly that they are doing it for the right reason. And that is why dealing with it is a particularly difficult thing. Democracy is a delicate system that thrives on mutual respect, dialogue, and the peaceful coexistence of diverse groups. If we continue with speech that divides us, it will be difficult to build a community together. Maikike gave us many examples about what has gone on in the world. Myanmar, Nigeria, Rwanda, everybody knows that. And I'm happy that you mentioned Kenya, because somehow 2007 crisis in Kenya, myself and the same Ozonia were involved in addressing the problems in Kenya. If you saw a prosperous, enlightened society like Kenya, and what polarizing narratives about ethnicity had brought them to, you would be sad for that society. But each side of that struggle felt very strongly that they were right, and they had a duty to protect their tribe. So the sense of nationhood was thrown to the gutters, and they went at each other. Ladies and gentlemen, I started by saying I want to propose 4 things about how we deal with this issue going forward. The first I want to suggest is that all of us should come to a certain realization that we cannot spend years marinating in the polarizing narrative of our grievance and intolerance and just turn up at the table of peace on election day and to say there should be no polarization. When we as Christians feel entitled to pursue our Christian agenda against others and we feel it is right, that is how we should understand when political parties feel entitled to go at their opponents. All of us need to begin to learn about how to accommodate the other, even when we don't agree with them. That, I know, is going to be a difficult sell, but it is the foundation for anything that we can do together to end polarized narratives in our society. As part of that, I call on all of us to develop the civic feel. I mean, the shared behavioral norms and basic moral values in the way we communicate with each other. That is the only way that we can work together to create a functioning democracy. The second thing that I want to do is a little more technical. We've heard a lot of comments about disinformation, foreign information, manipulation, and all. Traditionally, the responses that we have given to this have been two things: to do fact-checking and to do media and information literacy. At the global level now, something is emerging that I want to use these slides to show you. Let's go to the first slide. I try to use this as a very simplified model to show where the problem we are dealing with is located. When we think of communication, we always think of it as a source that has a message that sends it through a channel to a receiver. It's the most basic that all of us remember. When we do fact-checking, what we are essentially doing is that we are checking the source of the material to establish its authenticity and the credibility of the message. Okay. When we say we are dealing with media and information literacy, we are essentially inoculating the receiver, giving them tools to be able to examine the material that they get, to be able to establish the same authenticity and credibility that fact-checking does. The reason why we have done all this while and we still have problems is that we leave the middle element there. So that becomes the missing piece in the puzzle of addressing the problem. Going forward, if we are going to be successful, we will have to do an all-of-process approach. So let's look at the next slide. The strategy that we adopt essentially must follow this pattern. We must address the source issues, we must address the receiver issues, but we must also address the channel issues. Why is this important? I don't want to spend too much of your time, but modern technology is such that we say, those of you who are in Ghana, especially those who use MTN, do you notice that sometimes when you pick up your phone, you hear an advert of MTN playing on the network? That's essentially a broadcasting facility, crudely put. In the past, a telephone set could not do that. But modern telecom systems have become smart. So a lot of things happen within the network. And I use that as a crude analogy to illustrate to you the complexity of the things that happen in the channels, including the platforms that we use as social media. Algorithms are able to generate far more complicated content than any one of us can handle. When we used to deal with disinformation 1.0, we understood that the sources of the problem had a one-to-one correspondence with fact-checking. So if people put out narratives that were incorrect, we could catch all of them and explain to society that it is not true. The algorithms today generate content far more than the capacity that we can check. So we say that the offensive generating capabilities of modern networks far exceed the existing technology for defensive detection capabilities of the network. So all of us need to work together to address this. There are about 8 critical issues, technical issues in there, but I would want to save you from that. Just let's go to the next slide. I posed the question, what's in the network? These are the things in the network that make dealing with the network complicated. And why, if we don't address it, we are not likely to succeed. How is this addressed elsewhere? And Mark Ike made a point about regulations. Throughout the world now, the Freedom House last year estimated that 70% of the world's population live in countries where the internet and its resources are somehow regulated. Within the European Union, they have what they call the Digital Services Act to regulate the platforms now. And we say it with pride that the whole idea started from here. In 2016, with the support of the European Union, NMC passed the law on content standards, which our Supreme Court disagreed with. That became the foundation of a law that the Germans passed 7 months later called the Network Enforcement Act, which then became the foundation for digital services and the Digital Marketing Act in Europe. In the US, as we speak, there are about 56 different proposals before Congress seeking to address the same issue through legislation. The US Supreme Court recently had opportunity to look at 2 cases, Gonzalez and Google, and then Terminer and Twitter, which everybody thought was going to resolve the questions about platform liability. Somehow, the court addressed the cases outside the platform liability issues. And so the matter is still hanging. Why is it that in Africa, everybody is afraid of regulations? Sule is smiling. It is something that we, in our field, we call, let me not use the word. There's a term we call epistemic fallibility. It is the notion that the human being essentially is fallible and transported into politics. The African politicians and African political systems are too easy to be manipulated. And therefore, if you are not very careful and you give African politicians the chance to pass legislation in addressing the problem, they may go either way beyond what you want them to do or use it to restrict free expression. And I think the solution is what our brother said. Perhaps the time has come. And Anahima, you call on government to address the problem. In our context, we will say, let's keep government out. Let's deal with independent regulatory institutions. Let us revisit the question about what is the nature and content of free expression in Ghana, and what should be the legitimate boundaries of its limitations. The reason why I call for this at this point is that if we as civil society and independent groups do not lead that process to fashion legislation that is democratic, let us remember that our country manages by disaster. It's the truth. We will not build an office for foreign affairs until their building burns down. Then we would go and build something for them. We will not address any problem until some kind of disaster happens. The moment the disaster happens, we mobilize around it. If any disaster happens around disinformation issues, government may use it as the excuse to pursue legislative intervention that may undermine the values that we hold dear. It seems to me that if we are going to address this problem, this is one of the things that we definitely need to address. The next thing that I think, and perhaps my final comment, is that the time has come for us, and especially those of us in the media, to begin to reconceptualize the ethics of journalism, particularly in the 2 critical elements of fairness and balance. For those of you who are not within the journalism practice, journalism says that anytime there is a problem, the journalist must report the 2 sides to the problem. So if there is a conflict between MPP and NDC, traditional journalism requires that, the journalist report about what the NDC is saying and what the MPP is saying. In terms of traditional journalism, the journalist would have done his work. What peace journalism does is to reconceptualize these principles to say, let us look at the combatant or the feuding parties as representing one side. So where there's a conflict between MPP and NDC, we should understand the MPP and the NDC as representing one side. On the other side of the spectrum are the peace builders, the civil society groups, the vulnerable groups who are affected. Let us hear their voices in the story. Until we do that, we are going to highlight the polarizing narratives that the political actors give to us every day. But they are not the only people who live in the nation. I want to end by just showing you my last slide here, and you would see something very strange. This is from previous election. This is the totality of the coverage. Okay? How the media cover the various institutions. Please check how much the NDC gets, how much the MPP gets. Check how much the Electoral Commission gets. You can see that with all their effort, the Electoral Commission's part of total coverage is in that small corner there. So sometimes when we say the Electoral Commission, there is mistrust around the Electoral Commission. When we think that the Electoral Commission is not communicating, it is just simply because the system is stacked against them. People say, Peace Council, we don't hear about you. It is the same problem. Shraj is shouting every day about people's rights with regard to the elections. It is the same crunch that you are pushed into. If we don't reconceptualize the way journalism is done to include the voices that matter, for the rest of our lives, we are going to be driven by the political actors, and their communication is polarizing. And that is why I think that we have a good moment for all of us to work together to change this. For practical purposes, my suggestion to Le George is that let us quickly meet with our colleagues in the media, GIBA, GJA, all the key actors. Let us show everybody once again the empirical data and see what all of us can do about this. On the other issue about the platform management, I think we need to learn from what Kenya and South Africa did recently. They put together a big coalition that had civil society, regulators, everybody, and then they got the platforms into it. So what happened was that anytime you came across content that all of us agreed was problematic, it was easy to deal with the platforms to say, this has to be taken down. Whilst we wait to debate the question about the policy and the direction that if we are going to have, first of all, should we have regulation? If we are going to have regulation, as our brother suggested, what are the guiding questions? But these are long-term issues that we can have time to address post-election. Immediately, it seems to me that the next practical thing we need to do is to reconvene. It is on this basis that I'm extremely excited and happy with the coalition that the Media Foundation and Peace Council intend to launch. It is my wish that the Lord himself protects us as he has always done. There is something that I have lately come to like, and in moments like this, I used to guide myself. It is the classic song by Osibisa. As we get to this election, I know it will be hard. and the road will be muddy, but we will get there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. George Sapong, the Executive Secretary of the National Media Commission, Ghana's media regulator. And let me acknowledge the presence of Giba also here, represented by the Executive Secretary, Gloria. Good to see you. I think that, as George hinted, it's about time for the launch of the National Multi-Stakeholder Coalition Against Hate Speech and Other Polarizing Narratives. And at this point, I'd like to invite my colleague, Dr. Kojo Imprim, who would facilitate this particular session. While he joins me up here, let me acknowledge the fact that we also have a number of other organizations in here. We have NetRight, we have GenSed, we have PringPag, we have GACC, OneNeb, Amnesty International, GII, the Cybersecurity Authority, National Communications Authority, and many others. ISODEC is also here. UNESCO, WAXI are all in the room this morning. Thank you very much. I hand over now to Kojo.
Thank you, Abigail. All protocol duly acknowledged. My task is very simple, two things. First, the Media Foundation for West Africa and the National Peace Council have put together a group that we called the National Multi-Stakeholder Coalition Against Hate Speech and Other Toxic Narratives. And I'm going to respectfully call on the members of this coalition, and then as I'm ending, respectfully I'll call on Mr. George Amo, the Executive Secretary of National Peace Council, to officially launch the group. But before I do that, indulge me to outline one or two mandates of this multi-stakeholder coalition against hate speech and other toxic narratives. The group primarily are expected to discuss, develop, and recommend strategies that will help us to deal with issues of hate speech, polarizing narratives, incitement, as we are heading towards 7th December 2024 elections. Also, the group will become a source of information, of promoting information hygiene in the context of 2024 elections. We're expecting the group at the Media Foundation, we have already started issuing monitoring reports, and the group will be teasing out issues within this report, issues about polarization, issues about incitement, hate speech that are peddling around traditional and social media, and deal with those issues. They will be expected to be issuing statements to address these emerging issues. They are expected to name and shame political actors and media that are going to foment this incitement and hate speech. They are going to work closely also with political parties to dialogue to ensure that we have decent campaign language, not insult, so that we can have peaceful elections. Nana said we don't have medicine for peace. In the same way, we don't have medicine to cure insecurity. And therefore, we have to be more circumspect as political actors and media to ensure that we are having a peaceful election. Having said that, I will now invite on the podium the members of the coalition. Please, as they come, clap for them. I'm told in Ghana we don't like clapping, except when we go to church and we are at the stadium. So please, you clap for them. Oh, please clap. You see, I said it. You don't clap. It's only when we go to church. Oh, we are going to witness the Democracy Cup tonight. We have institutions that are forming the coalition. We have the National Peace Council. We have National Commission for Civic Education. We have Office of the National Chief Imam. We have Christian Council of Ghana, Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council, Churches, Ghana Federation of Disability Organization, Queen Mother's Foundation, and Ghana Journalists Association. Now, the members that are representing or have been nominated to represent institutions at the National Peace Council, one, we have Numo Blafo Akutia or Matthew III. He is the president of the Gangwe Council of Wolome. He's also the president or public relations officer of the Traditional Medicine Practitioner Council and also a board member of the National Peace Council. Numo, welcome, sir. Numo is the spokesperson of the coalition, right? So I'm sure the media would like to talk to you right from here. We also have Nana Amasewa Bonsu, the Queen Mother of Ofinso Kaire and president of the Queen Mother Foundation, representing the traditional authorities on the coalition. Maybe we'll have to line up in a way, so no more this way, and now we'll go to that way. Yes. Because we are very gender sensitive, Nana chairs or speaks anytime no more delegate that responsibility on his behalf or on behalf of the group. We also have Reverend Abraham Opoku Bafo, Reverend the Director of Interfaith and Economical Relations, Department of Christian Council of Ghana. Please, let's clap. Those who are not clapping, thank you so much for clapping. Then we have Dr. A.M. Mazouk. He is a personal assistant to the National Chief Imam and also the Executive Director of Islamic Peace and Security Council. Again, we have Mr. Albert Kobna Jumfo, the president of the GJA, but he has been represented on the coalition by Mr. Kofi Yeboah, the General Secretary of the Ghana Journalists Association. Thank you, Kofi. Maybe on that side. Again, we have Ms. Hager Ampao, is the Principal Chief Education Officer at National Commission for Civic Education. Hager asked of permission. She could not join us this morning, but she's on the committee. And also we have Mr. Achu Humaju, is the President of the Ghana Federation of Disability Organization. And then lastly, we have Apostle Inmawo Tete, the General Secretary of Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council. Apostle is also out of the country and could not join us for this launch. Having said that, indulge me to respectfully invite Mr. George Amo, the Executive Secretary of the National Peace Council, to officially launch the National Multi-Stakeholder Coalition against hate speech and other toxic narratives. Please clap for Mr. Akuma as he comes to the studio.
Dr. Emprim, thank you so much. Numo, Queen Mother, all of you, congratulations. Indulge me to invite to the podium to help me do this, the Commissioner for Shraj, my senior. And Mr. Mensah of Immigration, I think it's important they join us. Executive Secretary, our friend George, come, please. Major General, please, yes, come and support us do this. I think, yes, so please join us, and the Commission for Strategy will lead us to officially launch the coalition. Yes.
Thank you so much. Having heard so much about how we can counter hate speech and polarizing narratives, it is heartwarming that these organizations have nominated the following persons who have accepted to carry this very arduous task. We all heard George, we heard Mark, we heard the other George, and what they all said. It tells you what awaits them is quite a difficult task. But we're happy that we are asking them to do that for us. We will support you. We'll make sure that from any angle from our institutions, our personal representatives who are here, we would ensure that you have the best of support to carry out this arduous task. I believe the parties who are present here, it appears the burden falls on you more to make the work easier for this coalition. Having heard what George said, the platform issues, the channel issues, and of course, the pie chart that shows that you are the ones who are swallowing all the airspace. It means you are the ones who are the cause of much of the polarizing narratives. I plead with you, do your best to tone down. When they issue reports, accept the reports as they are and go back to the drawing board to see how you can improve upon your narratives in order that we all, since we have nowhere else to go, the rest of Africa or West Africa is in turmoil. We can't go anywhere. So we will want to plead with you to tone down and see how we can save our only country that we have in the lead up to the 2024 elections. I thank you so much. Yes, having said this, on behalf of the two institutions, Media Foundation for West Africa, National Peace Council, I have the honor and the privilege to declare the coalition that has just been presented before you duly launched. Thank you so much.
So right, once again, thank you for the section. I invite Numo to give a brief statement on behalf of the coalition in a minute or two.
Thank you. Chair, then members, Executive Secretary of the Media Foundation for West Africa, let me say, all protocols observed. In growing up, actually, around Gaumashi, I like to come to the Kwame Nkrumah circle. What do I come to do there? I will walk, because we have what we called bumper cars. So anytime I get some small money, I will walk from Jamestown or the Usher Town to Kwame Nkrumah Circle to come and enjoy myself. After that, there's one inscription which actually caught my attention. In the 70s, it's written, "One nation, one people, one destiny." Currently, I don't see that within our society. I believe that if we are one nation, we believe that we have one people, and we have only one country, that is Ghana, for us to all protect. All this hate speech and whatever that we are discussing today wouldn't be something for us to be taking time on. I think we would be discussing something that will bring development to our country. In Ghana, we say, "Ake moni jiogbe ina iseni, moni nyese le bake lake gbe no jio eja." To it, the leader doesn't see that the line he or she is drawing is crooked. It's those behind him or her who actually see and tell him or her that the line that he or she is drawing is crooked. On this note, I want to assure my members and all of us, our institutions, and all the other institutions represented here, that I accept to be the spokesperson for the coalition. We, the members of the coalition, will rely on your assistance, on your guidance, and everything that you do to assist us to succeed. Because if we succeed, Ghana has succeeded. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Numo Blafo, for those assuring words from the coalition. We also wish you all the best and would give you all the support that you need. We would just want to make a slight change on the agenda, and at this point, take the commitment statements from the political party reps. And let me mention that there is also a rep from Movement for Change already in the building. So if you look at the agenda, we will go just according to the way the political parties have been listed. So take the rep from NPP, the New Patriotic Party, your commitment statement. And as you can see, we are also giving out these pledge cards. I mean, it's maybe you call it some symbolism, you know, for the sake of it, but it's also important that all of us in the room express our commitment to peaceful elections. I think we have heard a lot, and so that should make it very easy for all of us to make that kind of commitment. And we'll do that, and then maybe we'll just hold up our cards, and the cameras can capture that, and we can continue with the program. So please, New Patriotic Party, if you can. Brief, very brief commitment statement. Thank you. And then we will follow with the NDC, the PNC, CPP, Movement for Change, New Force Movement, if they are in the house. Thank you. So please, you can also introduce yourself, your name, your designation. Yeah.
Thank you very much. My name is Haruna Mohammed, Deputy General Secretary of the New Patriotic Party. And Mr. William Yamua is the Director of Finance and Administration. We are here with our leader, who is in the person of the second National Vice Chairperson of the New Patriotic Party, Madam Rita Talata Asabayiri. On behalf of the New Patriotic Party, we stand here to commit ourselves to a peaceful elections, a peaceful country that resonate very well with the core tradition of the New Patriotic Party. Throughout our formative stage to this particular era, we have contributed positively to democratic credentials in this country. Right from our days of writing the stolen verdict, and our contribution in opposition in government demonstrated our courage and support to democratic credentials in this country. As we go into the 2024 general election, we believe that we can only live as a nation if we live peaceful among ourselves. Our past leaders and our current leaders has demonstrated that, and we will continue to be the beacon of democracy in Ghana. As a result of this, and by this forum and this formative of this group, we will continue to avail ourselves to civil society and the Media Foundation for West Africa and all other regulatory services that will stretch their hands to call upon us as a liberal conservative party. We will continue to play our part. We can only achieve this if we do it together. We can achieve that if we do it together, and we are ready. We are ready to do so. On this note, we say thank you, and may God bless our motherland, Ghana.
Thank you very much, New Patriotic Party. Is the NDC? Okay. Okay. So we have a rep from the NDC also coming up. Please introduce yourself and then.
Good afternoon. My name is George Lowe. I'm Deputy Director Legal of the National Democratic Congress. It's a pleasure to be here. I recognize all my good friends I haven't seen in many years. Some are looking very prosperous and good. George, my brother George, and all the others. Since we've been asked to be brief, I will not belabor the point. But once again, to say that we are delighted to be here. I've listened to the speakers, I've listened to all the things that have been said. And whilst it's our tradition and our track record as a party that when it comes to elections, we always come out as a very peaceful party. And you would also appreciate the fact that indeed, when it comes to hate speech, yes, I mean, there may be one or two skirmishes here and there, but generally as a party, we have maintained a very decorous way of communicating to the public. As is in the very nature of our flag bearer, you all know that he is a great communicator, so we'll try to learn from him. Having said that, let me also say that we are committed to peace. We are committed to all the things that will make Ghana a great country. We are committed to all the things that would help us go through a free, fair, and transparent elections. But let me give a proviso. The records as we have it does not give us hope. And I won't mince words on that. We can say all the fine things. I've heard all the beautiful English. In fact, at one point, my friend George was saying something I didn't even understand. Nice English, all that. It has happened. But if you take the events of 2020, where we lost 8 of our citizens, it's something we shouldn't be proud of. But more painfully is the fact that all of us here, all the fine people, the media, we didn't hear your voices. We didn't hear your voices. The question is why? In my village, they say that if you put your foot or your shoe on the scrotum of a deaf person, before you know it, he started speaking. It means that he can no longer contain the situation. So whereas we are still committed to peace, we will do everything within our power to ensure that we protect the only country that we have. I've just read a statement from the Ghana Armed Forces. I'm happy they are here. That they will protect the peace and integrity of Ghana. We hope they live up to their word. Because never again should 8 of our citizens die. And the political class will say that they were robbers, they were criminals, when they died in an election-related activities, and we all keep quiet in this country. The coalition has a big tax. Numo, we will support you. We are committed to support any process that will make us achieve the aims for which this program is being called. But the proviso is that let's speak up. Don't wait, because all of us are saying the same thing. When it happens, because we are hanging on a cliffhanger, everybody knows. You can pretend all you like, but 2020 is not going to be business as usual. 2024. Because whereas we are prepared to go with the flow, we are also prepared to protect ourselves. George said it. He said, we are going. Heaven knows where we are going. We pray we get there safely. But with everybody's collaboration, if we all live up to expectation, I'm confident we'll get there safely. So once again, we express our commitment to this process. And may God be our helper. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. PNC. Okay. So, Mr. Lord, don't leave yet. We would have all the political parties up here hold up their cards, expressing that commitment to peace again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abigail. Good afternoon to all of you. Mr. Chairman, all protocols observed. My name is Faruddin Yakubu from PNC, and I'm the Deputy General Secretary. In fact, I've listened to a lot of the comments regarding hate speech and the polarization. And I've seen some solutions that are being preferred for the coming election and the subsequent ones. But the question I ask is, so what are the punitive measures we are going to put through when somebody comes out with hate speech, where we all know this is a hate speech? The recent incident is that of the running mate of Vice President Dr. Baumia. We all know. We've heard a lot of the media houses speak against it. What are we doing about it? If you make hate speech, what happens? So are we going to tackle the civil side of hate speech, or we are going to apply if there is a legal portion of hate speech? Because with the civil, we all talk about it. But the consequences of those hate speech on the grounds are dire. And I feel as a country, we have to start talking about the punitive measures of hate speech. So on this note, I would like to say on behalf of PNC, I've been directed by my leader, Dr. David Apasara, to support the cause of peace before, during, and after the election, and to support the currently outdoored coalition on polarization and hate speech. So PNC gives their support, and as you've mentioned, we are supporting the coalition to fight hate speech in the country. Thank you.
Thank you, PNC. CPP. Okay.
Good afternoon. Greetings from the oldest political party in Ghana and the mother of Ghana, CPP, the Convention's People's Party. My name is Joyce Labi, the Deputy Secretary to the Independent Committee of the party. I want to congratulate the organizers for such a wonderful program. Peace is something that we can't buy. We work for peace. Peace is between me and you. Our political party, the Convention's People's Party, is committed to continue the independence we fought and we gave birth out of peace. During the times of the colonials, we rose up, but we did it with peace. We have brought Ghana to this where it is, and we are committed to see that Ghana will continue to the generations ahead of us. We will plead with all the stakeholders to extend this kind of peace collaboration stocks to the various communities. Our people in the rural areas are being used, misinformation, inciting them to fight against one another. Such programs here shouldn't end here. It should go in there. That is where the people are. We don't have any Ghana apart from where we have here. The CPP is for peace. We are for peace. And only CPP can maintain the peace. And we are encouraging you all to bring CPP to power so that we continue the good works that we have done. We support the Coalition for Peace. Thank you.
Thank you so much, CPP and Movement for Change. Okay.
Good afternoon. The movement for change is, even though we were founded by the Honorable Alain Martin, is led by young people. Young people who just want to see Ghana work out the way it should. Young people who just want to live and be proud of our country. Young people who don't want to travel outside to do menial jobs. We don't want to. And so I was happy to hear Numo's statement, and I picked a lot of inspiration from it. He said, one people, one destiny, and then what? One nation. And then I turn around, I see countering hate speech and polarizing narratives to foster democratic consolidation and peace in Ghana. And while I sat there, I don't feel so good, so please bear with me. I was a bit worried. I was worried because as a young man, I was sitting in a forum that is against polarization, but young people were constantly chastised, polarized by seniors here. Oh, should I say it? Okay. I took a bit of notes here. Why do we mention young people anytime we talk about insults to power wielders? Why? Are the young people not the ones who feel the most of the effects of bad governance, bad decisions? Who else should express our displeasure for us? Of course, you have movements like the Movement for Change to try to sensitize people, try to give hope and direction. But who else is going to do it for us if not young people? I'm just asking. I see a tendency to reduce the conversation to consequences rather than the causes of the frustration out there. I'm just going to end on this. I have a British friend in town who calls, Michael, everybody is angry in Ghana. I'm like, why? Why do you say that, Jenna? Look, I'm surrounded by a bunch of angry men. Everybody is angry, and it's just a simple matter, but they are just angry. I'm coming to hate speech and polarizing speeches. It's as a result of a certain frustration in the system. People are not happy. I think, and that's my opinion, the only people who are very happy and comfortable in the country now are those walking the corridors of power or very close to power. Most of us young people are not happy. Most of us. And then you have the man, the Honorable Alain Martin, come out of this polarized regime and says, hey guys, we've been trying to do things the wrong way. Let's reset our country. Let's rebuild the country around a national development plan. That's a great transformational plan he's launched. Let's build this country with a united force where people move based on merit to serve their country. And that's all the Movement for Change is about. We commit to peace, and that's why we launched the Great Transformational Plan. We want to see the young people form an embodiment of active participation in governance, in issues of development, and not just at the receiving end of, chastisement. We are not happy with that. I think the real issues should be what we can do to develop our people, what we can do to develop our country, and that's what Honorable Alain Martin is for. Let's support him and get this country working again. So that's the peace message we have. It's all about issues. It's all about changing the dynamics of our politics, the divisive politics of the NPP and then the NDC. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Do we have the new force movement, EREP? Okay. All right. So then, can we have the political parties up here hold up their cards, their commitment to peace cards, please, quickly. So we move on to the very final part of today's event. And reminding ourselves that, yes, we want young people to be in governance, but we also want conversations that are about issues, not insults. And so young people can contribute to the discussions. Okay. Yeah, so we have the political party reps here. Okay, so these are actually car stickers. We would love to see them on your cars in town. We also have miniature ones, actually, maybe for your laptops. And okay, let me step down. So after that, we will all hold up our cards for a photograph, and then we'll just continue with the program. Okay, so the political parties in Ghana are pledging their commitment to peaceful 2024 elections. Thank you very much. We really appreciate that. Okay, so I think it's time for all of us now to also hold up our cards for the cameras, for ourselves, for our nation, Ghana, in our own small way. Okay, shall we all please be on our feet and do this respectfully? Okay. Okay. I have a card. Okay. All right, so if the cameras are ready, okay, so please hold it up. And we all, in our own small way and in whichever capacities we find ourselves, are committing to peaceful 2024 elections. And we are saying, let the public discourse also be about issues and not insults. Thank you all so much. We really appreciate this. Thank you very much. Okay, so at this point, I would also invite Rebecca Ewa, who is with the Fourth Estate, to facilitate the panel. It's going to be a very brief panel conversation, but it would have representative from media organizations. We want to hear. I think this morning we've heard a lot about the role that the media is playing when it comes to issues of polarizing narratives. So, Becky, thank you.
Thank you very much, Abigail. I think throughout the program we have heard that indeed democracy, the foundation of democracy, comes under attack when we continue to spew narratives and ideas that seem that borders on hate speech. And again, it also affects the health of information when it comes to polarizing narratives and propaganda. And Honorable George Lowe, the former MP for North Dai, has also charged that we haven't heard from the media. So we need to speak up. So it's time to hear from the media and those in that space. So without much ado, I have on this panel where we will be discussing countering hate speech and polarizing narratives, the role of the media, And to do this, I have a representative from Radio Gold in the person of Henry Kojo Agbai. Joining him will be the news editor for UTV, that is of the Despite Media Group, Efua Mensah. Efua Mensah, please join us up here. I also have Martin Esiedu Date. Martin is with Media General. He is part of the political desk of Media General. Martin Esiedu Date. GBC is duly represented by Rebecca Ekpe. Rebecca is the editor-in-chief of GBC Online. Yes, at the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. And with Ken City Media, on Man FM to be precise, I have the programs director, Dr. Moses Okain. Dr. Moses Okain, yes. We extended an invitation to the multimedia group, but unfortunately, I think they are not here. Oh, a round of applause for Doctor as he takes his seat. Thank you so much. My name is Rebecca Ewa, and I will be your moderator for this particular session. In the course of the discussion, we will give the opportunity, if there is time, for us to ask key questions to the panel members. Let me start with Martin. Hate speech, polarized narratives, insightful comments. How deep-seated has it become in our media fabric?
Thank you very much. A very good afternoon to all of us, and I'm happy to be here. It goes without saying that the role of the media is quite essential to the development of the country, and over the last few decades, that we have, as a nation, decided to use multi-party democracy as a route that we want to live by. Humans, as we are, people have said things that have gone contrary to the expected norms. So it is fair to say that part of the democratic process has had to allow different opinions. Some of these opinions that have been expressed have gone contrary to the accepted norms. So deep-seated, I may not describe it so, but hate speech or language that is not palatable to the peace process has come up every now and then, right from even before 1992 when we decided to, be a democratic dispensation. In 2024, last few months, although a lot of effort has gone into sensitizing the populace, institutions like the Media Foundation for West Africa, different media institutions, the National Commission on Civic Education, etc., have all done their bit to educate people and get them to know how to speak. I must also say that we actually have done better compared to previous elections. And I recall before the 2012 elections, our elections were really, really heated. The language was really terrible. But over time, and due to public education and sensitization, we have made significant efforts in cleaning up and making sure our language is a bit more palatable to the ear. Irrespective of the differences we have or we may share, we are still able to put our disagreements across, put our positions across, and collectively we've made some strides, succeeded in getting to where we are. We are not there yet, and like all the key speakers have indicated, there's still a lot more work to do, but we cannot also say nothing at all has been done. So yes, significant effort has been done, but a lot more is still needed to be done.
Right. Let me give you some statistics. It's true that some efforts are ongoing and have been done, but let's look at, we have the Media Foundation for West Africa has a language monitoring project. And for the 2020 elections, we monitored 60 radio stations, out of which we found that 17,280 of such programs had hate speeches. Again, out of that number, 175 individuals, making up of 582, made 582 indecent expressions. I'm saying this in line with the progress of work that you're talking about. And these individuals, they included hosts, discussants, they included interviewees, testers, callers onto our media platform. If
yeah, so I mean, just to maybe wrap up the point, because you've actually buttressed the information I put out with some data, and you're right. The other concern a few people have also raised is that conversations like these seem to be centralized, seems to be in Accra. That data you've just given, the research was across the country. So it means that in as much as we are cautioning people and drawing people's attention to the fact that be mindful of what you say, we need to make sure it's a national conversation. It goes beyond the four corners of just Accra and maybe the capital cities we have in the country. Let's bring the entire country into, you know, the space of talking about. About a few months ago, some radio stations were closed and they were not in Accra. Boko is one of the very volatile areas or places we have in the country. Their conflict is not even political, you know, but it is even worsened when you have a political system, or we are going into an electioneering period, and there are tribal or traditional disagreements that could even escalate simple disagreements. So it is fair, and in concluding, I'll say that let us extend such platforms or such conversations beyond the shores of Accra and extend it to get other people to also commit. Because we can't do this in Accra, and then when there are conflicts elsewhere, they are all calculated as Ghana. None of this data is specific to say Accra has the most violent conversations or hate speech in the media space. It is a national issue, and it's good that we have institutions that are committed to this process. The media has a critical role to play in supporting and using our platforms to get people to express themselves, but they need to be guarded in what they say as well.
Right, Rebecca, what in your estimation is accounting for this rising presence of polarized narratives?
Thank you very much. Good morning. Sorry, I'm a bit under the weather, so you can hear that from my voice, but I really have to be here because it's a very important subject. For those of us who are very passionate about what we do within the media space, I think that this is an opportunity that I would not have missed. Thank you very much, Mr. Suleiman Abraima and the whole Media Foundation for West African team. I think that this is a very important platform, talking about peaceful elections and talking about interventions that would go to neutralize issues of polarized speech. We cannot think about that enough, especially as we know and we all agree and have said here on this platform that the temperature is not something to talk about. And we've seen that in models such as the US, as Mr. Sapong had alluded earlier. Therefore, we all have a responsibility to ensure that we are part of the process. Thank you very much. Having said that, Rebecca, to answer your question, what accounts for that? What has accounted for the whole issue about us having or got into this point? I think it's clear and simple. Social media or technology, as Mr. Sapong had said, has actually amplified this whole conversation about polarized speech, and also for that matter, hate speech. It was happening, but we never used to see or feel it to this point where we are actually seeing it on our, handsets. We at the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation actually did a research, real-time research, and we found out that 80% of the news that we are putting out there on our online platform congregates actually on our handsets. And it will also interest you to know that the age bracket that actually reads the information is 25 years, between 25 and 35. So those are the people that we're actually communicating to. So I sympathize with the young man who is saying that he feels that he's been, kind of sidelined because everything is about them. But truth be told, seeing what has happened in Kenya and all that, what is happening is actually targeted, let me say, to the young people because they are the consumers of the information. If I also go by Mr. Sapon's analogy on the channels and all of that. The channel through which the information is being populated, congregated, communicated, and being disseminated, it's the cell phones, the tablets, the platforms, and 24/7 in our trotros and everywhere. That is where the information is going through. And it will be very sad if we do not pay attention to this platform. And it's challenging because it's real time. By the time you know, given the Chef Smith issue, by the time you know it has happened. And I think Mr. Sapon said it succinctly that, you know, we have to find a way to address it in a very technical way, but at the same time aggressively, because it's happening really fast. And so we haven't gotten there yet. We all want to use cell phones, but we are not really fast enough to address the challenges when they arrive. So we are all part of the process. At GBC, like I said, you know, we have identified that, and recently you noticed that we launched what we call a policy, which is a media policy, to guide reportage in our elections for 2024. That is one of the mechanisms that we are using to address this issue. So you have a policy that will guide you to be able to address the issues, and it's very important. And I think that that is what Media Foundation for West Africa has also done by launching this coalition. Let me also chip in that as GBC, we do have a committee that we call the Political Broadcast Monitoring and Complaints Committee. This is a committee that was set up and is a fallout from what happened between GBC and MPP. If you know that the GBC was taken to court at a time where the MPP had complained of not giving equal coverage. At that time, it was the NDC that was in office. So one of the ways to address that was to come up with a working committee that solely will monitor elections and make sure that equal time and space is given to all political parties. Remember, when people feel that they are not being part of the conversation, they feel they are being muzzled out, and they feel that their voices are not being heard. And I think Mr. Sapon said that other voices, let's make sure that we hear the other voices. It's not only black and white, green and yellow, but between the green and yellow and red and white, there are other shades. We need to talk about them. They do matter. They matter. And we at GBC, I think that is very clear. Our public service mandate, our state, public service and all other mandates that are very clear in that, and we've been doing that.
Because you mentioned the issue about GBC and the MPP case that was given a ruling in the Supreme Court of Law. Let me stay a little while longer on you. With regards to, there has been this critique about GBC. Well, you have passed the litmus test when it comes to hate speech, polarizing narratives. But again, people are also worried that you continue to give more room to the incumbent as opposed to the to the opposition.
Thank you very much.
So how different do you think this time around your political committee will address that issue?
Thank you very much, Rebecca, for the opportunity to be able to clarify this issue once again. GBC has a mandate to the state, and I'm sure you all know that. A mandate is to send out a certain message. I'm just saying that to say it's very clear in some countries to be able to say this, do that. But in our case, it's not very clear. We need to do some work on it. Having said that, let me point out that the issue about the state broadcaster given perception, let me give you just a scenario. For example, if the new force, let's say, comes in to make a claim on a certain, political party which is in office, would have to respond to that. If the CPP comes to make a claim, we'll have to respond to that. How it's counting, all counting in favor of who? The accuser. Who then becomes the accuser? And so if you are documenting that, you are claiming that there is more, airtime being given to a certain power, a certain political power in office. I'm sure you understand what I'm trying to say. Yes, because you'll be documenting, because you're seeing that an answer is being given to a particular accusation. So political parties, let me say this, when you are giving out accusations, you are rather making your opponent popular. That's what it is. And would have to, it's news item. We'll go after it. So that's what happens. So it's not as if it is intentional that we're given a certain clout to a particular party. Like I said, we actually document these things, so we have all the data.
All right. Okay, so
thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
And let me point out that there was an EU report that was released, and GBC actually wrote to counter that EU report.
I was coming to that.
We'll make that available to you, because we actually wrote to explain this point, and the DG has gone to explain. In fact, we actually, at the launch of the political broadcast policy that we did recently, it's streamed, it's online, the information is available. The DG succinctly explained this point, and it's available for you to actually watch that on our Facebook and other platforms to understand this particular issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Hawkins, still on the issue of countering hate speech and the role of the media, do you see the influence of media ownership when it comes to being forthright about what you have to say? Does it have any influence on your professional standards?
Oh, okay. First of all, I just wanted to address the hate speech.
Go ahead.
What happens, then I'll come to the ownership.
Please go ahead.
You see, and I think must all be very frank and truthful, like Mr. Sapon said. I might step on a few toes, but you see, when you come into the media space, there are journalists and there are radio presenters. When you see anybody indulging in those invective and aspersions, go and check the background. The person is not a trained journalist. You see, and that is why it is only in journalism, or it is only journalism that is not a profession. You can't be working with lawyers and tell us you're a lawyer. Or you can't be working in a hospital, cleaning the shoes of doctors and tell us you're a doctor. It is only in the media profession. There are people working in radio stations. And because they are adept at speaking the Chi language, they stayed in the chief's palace somewhere in the village, and therefore they can speak the Chi language. And therefore we employ them, and they end up insulting people. You won't get any trained journalist doing that. You understand? And they say, and we are all culpable and we are all involved. Because depending on the political divide you find yourself, we applaud them. And we say, oh, why are they? Can more fire? And so you see, and you see, Mr. Sapon made a statement. Mr. Sapon made a statement that some people feel a sense of right in doing what they are doing. But I can tell you, a journalist who has gone for money does not feel a sense of right. He's doing it because he has gone for money, and you do it. You see, so the naming and shaming doesn't affect any journalist at all, I'm telling you. So, like one of the political party guys said, punitive measures. I think, you see, the naming and the shaming has not affected journalism in any way. You understand? It hasn't. So, I think the best thing to do is to do prosecution. You see, and we are saying freedom of speech. You see, we have to. When we start prosecuting people who are insulting blatantly, people will stop. That is all that we understand. I mean it. And I tell you, we fear prosecution. We don't fear naming and shaming.
All right. You see, before you even go to my other point of ownership, whether it affects your professional standards, you have said something here, and from our language monitoring project, on Man FM, your program, National Agenda and Boiling Point, has been cited over the years for using very strong, indecent expressions. In fact, our June report for this year cited National Agenda. Why do you continue to allow that on your show? And what commitment would you give to that?
So you see, I'll bring a commitment, but like I'm saying, when you see a presenter, but you see, you will never see any Oman FM presenter using strong language, I can assure you. Check the report. You see, normally it is the politicians or the callers who come in and use those strong languages.
But you are the moderator. If there is a host, then you should be able to contain your panelists.
Let me say something. In Ghana, there's something I don't know where it came from. It's alleged. We wait for the politician to make the statement. Then we say, oh, we are not part of what he said. But you see, most of the time, the politicians speak what they are. And you can't know what the politician is coming to say until they finish saying it. Then you have to maybe put in a disclaimer. I mean, you are not in the mind.
Do you agree, House? You agree to that? What he's saying?
Oh, but it is
respectfully, I don't agree.
No, listen, it is not.
Look, immediately you with Vance Research as the host or the hostess, then if the person is spewing something that is not credible or it will inflame passions, immediately you cut the person.
Oh, we do that. We do that. But
how often?
Oh no, but as for how often, I cannot be able to tell you.
Okay.
Because as often as we can. You understand? But what I'm saying is, you might not know, you are talking of callers and those things. You see, we are very passionate about what you are saying. And for somebody to use strong words, you understand, which inflame passions and cause some of these divisions and chaos, we are against it. So like you are saying, immediately the politician, I don't know who did it.
It's Media Foundation for West Africa.
Yes, but if you would go back, you will see that we always cut the people who start those, your conversations.
Okay, so Dr. can give us some commitments here, moving forward.
Of course.
On Ken City Media.
I don't know why, maybe you have not checked since 2020, up to now. And I can tell you, we don't even allow anybody to indulge in that. The 2020 was a lesson. Before the 2020, it happened like you are saying. But we have not allowed, up to now, you can check, we are not allowing anybody to bring in those acidic, invectives, because we see that it is chaotic and it doesn't augur well for the country.
Okay. But do you think, you can do that better for him, because that is what we need as a nation. Do you think that media ownership in previous years influenced these narratives on your platform?
Several. It's in previous years.
And even...
No, for now it is not. But in previous years, it did. It really did. But you see, after a lot of introspection and sitting down and having a lot of meetings, we realized that media ownership must not influence our content display, you understand? So, like I was telling you, from 2020 to now, if you would listen, or if your researchers are on the ground, they will realize that media ownership does not influence, especially with the FM, media ownership does not influence our content.
Okay, I see Henry smiling. Henry, please, if we kindly help him with... Do you agree or disagree? You are coming from Radio Gold. And let's hear you.
Yes, and I like to start on what I consider to be a bit of an irony. You know, you made reference to the year 2020. And by 2020, Radio Gold was not on air. We were yanked off the air in a very callous manner without recourse to even the laws governing the closure of radio stations. And so this whole discussion about polarization, I just find it very, very...
I beg to differ. Is that to say that?
I mean, let's be brutally frank. On the media landscape, there's only one station that is on record for having entertained a genocide. Somebody made a genocidal comment on one radio station. There's only one radio station on record in Accra that has that record. No other radio station has it. Having said that, again, the truth is that ownership definitely has an influence on content in more ways than one. I mean, if I set up a radio station, I own the radio station, I employ you, I pay your salary, and I send you an unwritten memo in a certain coded manner that this is the way to go. This is the agenda, this is the line I want you to toe. You don't have a choice. It's either you're principled enough to say, I'm not going to do this and walk away, or you toe the line. And so, to a very large extent, the claim that ownership has an influence on content is realistic, it's true.
And is that helpful for our growing democracy, especially in relation to hate speech and polarizing narratives?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, it's about economics. Some of us are principled and opinionated. If I see that this piece of paper is white, you can't convince me that it's yellow. It's white. And so I can stand by my convictions. But what about somebody else who cannot, and who has to live, who has to take care of their families, who has to work, earn money, and take care of their families? If you're and again, let's be fair, let's be realistic. There have been instances on the media landscape here in Accra where an individual presenter is on air, he's following a certain cause, he's chatting a certain agenda, and the owner calls and says, listen, the GRA are on my neck because of you. And he had to walk. So these are realities that practitioners and people in the media space have to deal with. If your boss is being hounded by the GRA, allegedly, to borrow the expression of my good friend on the other side, he has a choice between his interests, his business interests, and sacrificing you. And so he would take the lesser option, which is getting
What
rid of
do we
you.
do with such pro-partisan radio stations and TV stations, because and their presenters as well?
And unfortunately, or fortunately, I dare say it's almost impossible to set up a radio station if you don't have political clout. It's almost impossible.
How
I mean, you check the profile of the owners of the various radio stations we have across the country. It's almost impossible to be just a normal individual to set up, put a group together and raise money, get equipment, and set up a radio station. It's almost impossible. And so that is the reality. It is people with clout, people with money, people with influence who are able to set up radio stations.
Eva, how then do we win this fight? Because if all our owners are politically exposed persons and we would want to sanitize the airwaves, we know 2024 election is a crucial election and will be a decider on how well we have done in our democratic journey. How do we win the fight if our owners would want us to toe a particular line that will make our country run into mayhem, or there's pandemonium and everything?
Okay, so before I go to the questions, all protocols observed, and I would like to say what my former lecturer and executive secretary of the NMC said, that it will be a very hard and muddy road, but we will get there. Okay, so the fact that, yes, ownership of the media, some of them have biased political things. It's not like that's the end of the road. Then what happens to regulations? So the NMC is there, the NCA is there, other stakeholders are around. What happens to regulations? What happens to the media person? Let's talk about ethics. So if you take away regulations, take away ethics, take away other stakeholders in the picture, then obviously what you're doing is not a good job. So we are looking at getting the things right, and the persons in society are the ones who are going to say, okay, what you're doing here is wrong, what you're doing here is right. So I'm looking at the NCA, the media, and other stakeholders to make it right.
But is the media conscious? You talk about ethics and regulation. Even for those in the media space, are we conscious of this obligation to ensure that we our society, or there is peace in Ghana, we maintain our stability and all of that? Or we are just checking our professional duties and ethics, throwing it down and just going ahead with our duties because we have political leanings?
Well, if you throw away your ethics, then obviously what you're doing is wrong. And so the society then looking at you and saying, okay, they can decipher and say, what the station is doing, this is not what I want to listen to. I want to listen to somebody who is giving me the right and factual news. Because then we are looking at news, most media houses looking at sensational stories, which is what the community wants, which is what the society wants. And they are saying, okay, you're giving me this, let me rant to you. But is it factual? That's what we should be driving at. So I think that in all of this, let's look at how factual our stories are, how true they are, and that is what the discerning Ghanaian would take home.
Martin, yes. You see, we have talked about Oman FM, talked about Radio Gold, and when it comes to Media General TV3, TV3 is known to 3FM, high standards. But when you come to your local station, Onia TV, you allow Captain Smart and the morning team to insult. And why that? Is it a political or a marketing strategy to get people to that station? Or you're looking at the nation, you're looking at national cohesion on the side? What exactly? Go ahead, please.
Just a small point before he comes in. Yeah, TV3 was on record during the last election for announcing that a particular candidate had lost an election when in actual fact they were winning. So I'm not sure. Yes. So just he should factor that into his response.
Right. Thank you for that question. And just to put out a caveat, I do not purport to speak for Media General. However, I am part of the editorial team for TV3. Onia TV, Onia FM are part of the bigger Media General group. So they have their own editorial system. However, there are basic standards that run across, and ethics that we all follow. You see, the truth of the matter is, and this is a lot more of a personal position than of a station position, which is that humans as we are, if you leave us, we would run amok and do things as we want. That is why we have state institutions, or aside state institutions, there are regulators. So I was pleased that we have gone beyond just the rhetoric and formed a committee that is a multi-stakeholder committee. I am looking forward to what guidelines they will bring out, which media houses are supposed to follow. And I like the fact that Mr. Sapong indicated, if we allow the thing to happen, or whatever mayhem to happen out of hate speech, and government now has to write out a regulation or set out the laws we need to follow, they might choke all the media houses, or the media press freedom will not exist in Ghana. So we are better off drawing our own attention to ourselves and say that this you said is wrong, this you said is right, this is the standard, or this is a red line nobody should cross. And by so doing, we help ourselves improve the democracy and the media space we have in the country. I will not run away from the fact that there have been certain utterances on some stations. Onia TV you mentioned. Listen carefully to the words that the person said. And you can tell that these are personal words or personal sentiments the person is pushing out.
And are you bothered sometimes when you hear those personal sentiments?
Oh, I mean, of course, we are human. I mean, look, live out wherever you work for. You are human, and you have sensibilities. You can understand things. You can decipher things for yourself. You are an adult. You see, so if you are saying, if even your own parent says something that is wrong, respectfully, you should be able to tell the person that the person is wrong. Without fighting fire with fire. There should be a way to regulate some of these kinds of commentary on our media platforms. That should not in itself cause more mayhem. So, understandably, over the last few years, it has been the media houses that are known to be clearly political. Radio Gold, oh, it's an NDC station. Oman FM, oh, it's an MPP station.
And Onia?
But I mean, you give us a party. But we can also agree to the fact that there are certain individuals on those media platforms that are able to still put out very cogent points without insulting or insinuating any form of violence. And like you indicated, a lot of us listen to some stations because they say things we like. Or we are discerning enough to say that of all the over 100 and something radio stations in Ghana and over 30 or 40 TV stations, these are my options. That is why in your individual cars or on your phones, you have set specific stations you listen to at specific times to listen to specific programs. That is the discernment we appreciate as individuals. However, we need regulators to say that there is a certain red line nobody should cross. When someone uses clear invectives against another person, it is a no-no. You can disagree and say that the gap, look, no, there's nobody in this room who hasn't felt the pinch of the economic crunch. Nobody can say that, okay, someone said that, except a certain group of people at the very top. But beyond that, everybody is feeling the pinch. And in your position to express that discomfort, you should not insult. You can say that I disagree with this policy. Yesterday, the whole country, if you monitor media conversations, this new ally that was in parliament to allow judges, MPs, ministers to have a free day on our roads, it was vehemently disagreed with, and it's been withdrawn from parliament. That is the way it should go. That no stone was thrown, no individual was hit, but the state's position or the people's position has been applauded or has stood the test of time. That is where we should get to. And if we draw down to specific people who are employed in media houses, two things for me. One, there is content media houses create because that is what the people want. And then there is content the people want, so you create it for them. We can decide to come up with political programs, and for the next how many months up until election, you will not hear anything untoward on those platforms. However, there are certain media houses or there are certain people who want specific content that, if you don't have this as part of your programming for the electioneering period, you are going to lose out. So people come up, draft a program, and then you put it out there. Both ways, you need to be mindful of both your guests and the people that you allow to run or manage these programs. We should not say this and lay all the blame on the media houses. Yes, we are given the platform, but the people who call in, the supporters of the political parties, or it may not even be political, it might be just a regular social issue. The people who call in to contribute are also part of the conversation, or should be part of the conversation. That same regulation that would come to check the media houses or
so right, let me
the
open up
listeners
the
and
conversation.
contributors also need to be.
Let me open up the conversation and permit my audience to also ask questions if there are. If you have any question, contribution, suggestion, so that we can sanitize our airways for our 2024 election, please, you can lift up your hand. A microphone will be brought to you so that you can go ahead. But I'll come back to you before we wrap up. GBC has told us they have a media policy now. What are the other media houses doing going into the election? So you tell us that and give us a key commitment. Okay, I have, yes. Please, let's show by hands so that, okay, please, yes. Okay, then we go to GJA. Please, your hands up. The movement for change, I see my young lady, please, and yes, the gentleman there, and yes, yes, so 6 in all.
Okay, thank you very much. Mine is not a question. I'll just play something and I would want their reactions from it. And I'm going to play what Captain Smart said recently. And it's great that the people in the lineup are persons who are controlling or part of the decision makers of the most influential radio stations in Accra. Of course, Oman FM, GBC, Media General, TV3 is perhaps one of the most influential, if not the most influential, TV station in Accra. Of course, UTV and Peace FM is within that umbrella, and it's perhaps one of the most influential. And Radio Gold on the other side to Oman FM, and it's good that you are seated next to each other. Opposite each other, and then of course. Power FM, I don't know whether it belongs to the same group, but maybe not. So just 40 seconds. This is what Captain Smart says, and apologies to those who may be offended by this, but I need your reaction as folks who are in charge of the media. I hope that it plays.
I want to repeat this statement. The ticket of Baumia, Napo, Utu Abama Wama, we are Bois. Unimyansa, what drink the fem, ye tia so, a petchen, a pro, a say. And yes, I win any pow, we any pa me do, me boo, me ni so, me condo, na emono, we yes, sir, say obindo on maya, on any pa, by Quasia. Say obindo on maya, on any pa, or ye beast aboa.
Okay, so I believe that almost everyone here may have heard this. And we will need just a quick reaction. How do you deal with this? And this is not speaking to somebody on the phone. This is on television. And this is the shorter version of it. Martin, maybe you know. It went on for almost 5 to 10 minutes. And I believe you have editors, you have the program managers and all of that. And maybe somebody will say, oh, this is not the first time. So how do we handle situations like this as editors and the people in charge of programming on your networks?
Okay, I'll set the ball rolling by saying that, again, and permit me if I'm being brutally frank, but media is about numbers. Every media house wants the numbers. Everybody wants attention. Unfortunately, some of us are grabbing the attention the wrong way by being controversial, being sounding a certain way. Again, for some of the characters, they are an institution. They have a large following, maybe within the media house itself, and so it becomes difficult to rein them in or control them. But I speak for my station to say that my boss, Mr. James Ejeni Mboateng, will suspend you immediately. You're done talking like this. If you don't take time, that will be the end of your slot on radio. And so I think that as you said, the editors, the management of the station should be able to call errant presenters to order. Thank you.
I would also say that let me first disagree with what Suleiman has said, that perhaps you are one of the influential. We are the influential despite media. Okay. So yes, it goes back to what are the editorial policies of the particular media house, and then you're also looking at what the regulators like CSOs like yourselves, and what are you also saying about this? I think I saw a publication in today's one of the dailies that said something about what GJA said in relation to what Captain Smart also said. I haven't really read that. But yes, what are the CSOs saying about it? What are the regulators saying about it? What is the media house that he's at? What are they also saying about it? We have to look at the bigger picture and then take it from there.
Would you want to talk before I...
Okay, before Martin comes in, I can feel the weight that's on Martin, and I really pity him. I don't want to be in his shoes. And I think he must be a brave journalist for accepting to speak here today, knowing very well that this issue, and I think that we need to commend him for standing up to the plate. Having said that, let me say that as editors, there's something that we just need to remember. As editors, we have what we call an agenda setting role, gatekeeping role. These are basics in our journalism school that we are taught, and we're supposed to carry that along with us. That is what we need to bring to the table, I think, at this point. The editors and are supposed to remember that they have an agenda setting role, a gatekeeping role. And I think the words speak for themselves. I don't need to explain what it means to set an agenda or what it means to keep the gate. Keeping the gate simply means that you must make sure that you don't allow what doesn't need to go out to go out. That's why you are the editor. And that's why you are keeping that gate. And setting the agenda means this is how the tone and whatever you want to go out or what you want people to discuss. And I think that our morning shows do that a lot in Ghana. They set the agenda. And Mr. Dati here just said that a while ago about the LI that was rejected. And I think that most of the media houses set the agenda by making sure that, you know, they populated that information, and what had to happen happened. Just like anything else that we don't want to happen. As journalists or as editors for that matter, we make sure that we hammer. That's what, let me just use the word hammer so we understand. That's what we talk about. But to answer directly, Suleimana, I think that, like I said, in GBC, we have a policy. And insults are not part of what we need to put out there. So in a case like that, such a journalist may not even finish the show. So in GBC, that even doesn't come up. It will not even come through. Even before you are employed, I mean, there's a lot of processes before you are even put on air. So it may not even happen that you will even speak like that in a place like GBC. Since
Let's
I'm
give
supposed
Martin
to,
the opportunity to also, so
and
that we
having
take the
said
last,
that,
because
let
my
me
time
say
is almost
quickly,
up.
let me just round up. Thank you for that. Let me say quickly that one of the things that we have realized is that education, the low levels of education in Ghana, is partly contributing to this issue of hate speech and polarized narratives, and this is research pointing to that. So we have a responsibility to ensure that our people are educated. Having said that, GBC is one of the state organizations, or I think organizations that are mandated to provide education. I'd like to use this platform to appeal to everyone to support the state broadcaster to be able to provide education to every nook and cranny of this country. GBC is the only station in Ghana that is able to cover everywhere and almost everywhere, even without money. It is very important that we realize that at a time like this, that we need to protect our democracy and keep Ghana together. We need to ensure that we are also supporting a media that will be able to do this and do this properly. Even as I'm speaking here, I'm sure that GBC is the station that is carrying this information out and connecting us globally on a platform that will be able to hear this message. And for those who will be able to pitch in their coins to support this process, to populate the information, keep the discourse going. Let me announce that we have a hash, we have a number here, *447 *333 hash, for you to pay your TV license to support GBC. To be able
Rebecca, I'll bring you.
Thank you very much.
I'll bring you a voucher after this.
That was what I was going to say. Give her a budget so that.
Yes, I'll contact my finance team and we'll bring you.
So should I come in
that was a
before?
free advertisement.
Should I come in before he comes in?
Yes, briefly, because I have others who would want to ask it.
Yeah. So you see, in the beginning I said we have radio presenters and we have journalists. Captain Smart is not a journalist. You can check from his back. He's not a journalist. And you see, for something like this, he must be jailed outright. You see, we joke with things. No, don't shake your head. You see, that is what we've done, and the thing has festered to this level. You see, you insult, and I'm shocked that people are not taking any action against him. But you see, for something like this, you would think it is bad. The other side are happy and they're enjoying it because it's denigrating the other side, and it's to the advantage of the other side. So it means automatically vote for the other side. So the others are happy and they'll be encouraging him. And I know what journalists do. They don't do this for nothing. They do this because they've come for money. I'm not talking of Captain Smart.
We cannot substantiate.
No, I'm saying.
So
no. Let me tell you.
Let me just catch you in there. Let me bring him into the conversation. Then I'll take the last batch of questions.
But I haven't finished.
No, I won't allow this on this platform. I can't substantiate.
I didn't say Captain Smart. I said journalist.
No, but
and I'm a journalist.
You can't
and I
allege
know what
that way.
No. I'm not alleging. I'm talking of what happens. You see, let's face the facts and go into the truth. Let's not pull wool over things and whitewash things. I am telling you, brought me here, and I'm telling you the truth. I'm saying that is what some journalists do.
Do you take money?
I'm saying some journalists
set agenda.
No, I don't speak on air. I don't take money.
But you are a programs manager. Majority of the things that go on air falls on your lap.
And I'm saying, you see, we have presenters and we have journalists. You don't see anybody who has been trained as a journalist doing that. I'm telling you, and I'm a trained journalist. Professor Kakari was my he was my lecturer, and he supervised my project work, Prof. Kakari. So I'm also applauding him here. So you see, I'm a trained journalist. I would never do that.
All right.
But I'm saying some of our people do that, and we know them. They do that. So you see, for somebody to just blatantly insult and say and use such words, well, you see, and that's what I'm saying. National Media Commission, because you see, they are not biting. They don't have the mandate to bite. You see, they only call for appellations, and then they call people, and then we sit down, go and apologize. So they should have been given the mandate to bite. Because some of these things, it calls for, you have to jail the person straight.
Martin.
Right. Again, let me put the caveat out. I am not speaking for Media General. I know that certainly this issue is being discussed at the very top. So we only can wait and see what comes out of it. And the individual that said this, we also need to learn to decouple the person from the media house. Yes, the person used the media house's platform to express these very derogatory remarks. But there is the individual, and then there is a platform. This is a known person. Before he even joined Media General, there were similar accusations hanging on his head. So the platform that he is on, that he has said this, which has become an unfortunate national, an unfortunate position being shared by a lot of the stakeholders in the media space, is also concerned. The media house is concerned. There have been a number of litigations against this individual regarding similar comments or similar utterances he has made in time past. So it's a tricky one, because look, take Captain Smart off air. We are in the era of social media. He can just decide to go live. Just take even TikTok, and the number of following he will get will probably be more than the eyeballs he is getting, who saw and heard what he said and are angry. So we need to, it's a very delicate subject that I think we need to think clearly about how we manage it. There is another issue I want to raise, which is that I know that in radio there used to be what they call the delay dump, where when people call in or are speaking from outside, what they say is heard in studio a few seconds before it goes on air. If it is negative or derogatory, there is a dump you press which mutes the negative or the wrong part that you don't want to go out before the final words go out. That has been taken away from almost all the radio stations we have in Ghana. I don't know about television, but for radio, there used to be that. We do not seem to have that anymore. So that is one way we could have prevented or reduced the number of negativity that goes out, on radio. For the last point I want to make would be issues of language. You see, he spoke in Twi. There is a very nuanced issue about our language. In English, immediately you use the word, and pardon me, if you use the word foolish, whether playfully or not, it catches everybody's attention that you are denigrating someone. In Twi, there are ways you can also even insult people that may not come out as an animal or a beast. You see, so language challenges or language difficulties also arise when you are trying to deal with issues like this. But I defer to the regulators, and thankfully we now have a multi-stakeholder committee that should come up with a coalition, how we can streamline. There's a difference between streamlining and gagging. And the media houses should also be mindful that when these guidelines come out, we wouldn't say they are gagging us, because we cannot allow some of these kinds of comments to be going out. We are all insulted, whether you are party A or party B. When you hear things like this, the fact that it's to a fellow human being shouldn't be allowed. So we need to be considerate in a number of these things. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let me take the last batch of questions. I'll take all at a go. So please.
Becky, I thank you very much. I am staying with Captain Smart. And Martin, your earlier response to the question, I applauded you. But this one there, no, I can't applaud you. The issue is that if you listen to the tape Sule played, he used abua and he used beast. So even if you talk about language, those two words are not allowed. And then also in your earlier submission, you indicated that all the platforms of media general, you have ethical code. If what Captain Smart said is allowed within your ethical code, then I am terribly shocked. And then also, I agree with you when you talk about regulation. Regulation is good. But I think what Judge Sapon was talking about was self-regulation. And that is even more critical than what the NMC would do. If you self-regulate, you don't even give room for the NMC to come in and do anything at all. And self-regulation means knowing that this is not allowed and so I should not go on air with that. You cannot say that you do what you like, okay, and then because NMC is there, you want NMC to come in and do anything. They say internal vigilance is the price for liberty. So we need to self-regulate ourselves so that we don't allow anybody to come from external to come and tell us what to do. And then again, if you look at the history of Captain Smart and you are alluding to it, if you know the person has a history of this nature, why would you want to engage him? And I must confess, I used to have very high respect for the media general group, but because of Captain Smart, my respect for the group has dropped. I have friends there, and you are one of them. Very nice guy. Captain Smart's boss, Stephen Shandoff, is my classmate at GIG. I've spoken to Stephen several times. And when you talk to him, they all appreciate that this is not it. So why can't we do the needful to deal with the issue? And I disagree, this is not a delicate issue. It's a simple matter. You are making it too delicate. Go frontally and deal with the issue. Mind you, what you think you are gaining in terms of eyeballs, in terms of commercials, the consequences that will come upon you at the end of the day will far outweigh that. So we need the management of the institution to deal with the issue. And I always draw attention to the Muntie 3 case, the content of court case. The Supreme Court punished the directors of the station. They were not directly involved, but the Supreme Court deemed it fit to extend that long arm to cover them too. And I also disagree with you. It is not a personal matter. You cannot decouple the person's personal thing from the station. The person is working for the station. So you cannot decouple the two. So it is for management to deal with the issue. And then we will end this matter. Otherwise, your respect, your recognition will be dropping for people like us who in the past held you in a very high esteem. Thank you very much, Rebecca.
Thank you, please. Thank you so much, Secretary of the GJA. Please let the questions be snappy, straight to the point, because we are behind time, but we want everybody to ask. So straight to the point, and we'll come back to the panel here. Where there are reactions, please, we'll give you the opportunity to do so.
Okay, thank you very much. Mine is a small contribution. I'm speaking on behalf of persons with disability in Ghana. I really want to appeal strongly to all stakeholders in this election coming up, the hate speeches and all that, key institutions that have roles to play in the elections, that when there is any violence, God forbid, the people who will suffer most will be persons with disabilities. Can you imagine? I want to talk to the emotions and the conscience of people who are involved in this process. Somebody who is in wheelchair. I miss telling him I'm blind. I want to come and vote and select my president. Why should I suffer? Why should I die because somebody wants to become a president or MP? Why do I run? Assuming you are in the room here, this is a police station room, and we are voting, and there's a violence here. As a blind person, where do I run to? I even don't know the interest, where the interest is. Why run? Why? So these are the issues. We are appealing to all stakeholders, especially the key institutions. Just recently, about 2-3 weeks ago, I heard that Afrobarometer's report saying that the confidence level of some key institutions are so low. It's a danger. It's a warning to all of us. So we are appealing that individuals, institutions, all of us as Ghanaians, the radio stations, the media, we are appealing to you. Person with disability in Ghana, disability community in Ghana is on its knees, begging you that let us manage the system well. Let us have a very peaceful election so that we can all have our peace and survive and move forward. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, sir. Please go ahead.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Media freedom is an essential feature of democracy, and I celebrated when the criminal libel law was repealed. But my question for you, in view of what I call media terrorism in our current democratic dispensation, is the repeal a curse or a blessing? Thank you.
That is a whole discussion. Okay, please. Mr. Sapon, then we go to my lady. There was a gentleman, then to Movement for Change. Okay.
Thank you very much. I wouldn't have wanted to, but NMC has come up and I need to explain. These are very technical, one technical statistical thing. They reminded me that I was a lecturer. When you talk about the GBC thing, I think it's about time that we explain the coverage differential. It is a standard practice anywhere in the world where the media becomes professional. You are likely to see what would appear like more coverage for the incumbent. You know why? It's very simple. If you have 3 political parties in the, say 4 political parties, Party A attacks the incumbent. The media would go to them because they have to be professional for their perspective. So in Ghana, the CPP will attack the MPP. The media will go to the MPP to respond. The NDC will attack the MPP. The MPP will be given the chance to respond. So when you start counting, you will see that the CPP gets 1, NDC gets 1, but MPP is getting 2. Okay, so it's always a multiple of the number of political parties you have and the dedication of the stations, okay, to be professional. So when we do data, you need to be able to disaggregate what we call the source news and the response news in order to be able to tell whether the system is balanced or not. We have been very quiet because we don't have to be the ones explaining for GBC. But it seems to me this time GBC is going to explain those issues in their data. That is number 1. Number 2, I wouldn't have commented on SMART because I have already issued the notice of revocation for the station. The point that we make, when in media regulation, we have no interest in the journalist. The moment regulation attaches the journalist, we say it's creating a chilling effect. So good regulations should not attach a journalist. That is why laws that criminalize media work, which means that individual journalists can be arrested, we are completely opposed to. Good regulation must target the institution so that the institution will put in place the necessary gatekeeping measures to stop the issues. And this is where the Onua FM matter comes up. Number one, the same presenter says that he wishes that the chairman of the Council of State and the Dwabin Hene is killed in an accident. He wishes that he be killed. We issued the notice. The station said, the management said, they find nothing wrong with what the presenter has done. Okay? They go ahead and say, the chief of defense staff, then it was a mama in office, is a beast. The commanders are beasts. We issue a notice. This time we say, let's go beyond the management to the board. If the management is thinking at the same level of the presenter, let's go up. The board writes that they see nothing wrong with this. Okay? This same presenter insults the people of Sehi to the point that the chiefs and people organize, slaughter a sheep, pour libation, and say they are declaring every person coming from that media house a persona non grata in their community. We call them and say, please, under the Constitution of Ghana, people have a right to free movement. And so you can't do that to them. They say, but what have you done about what this person is doing to us? Do you see? The same presenter sits on air and he's saying the Ghana Armed Forces, it sounds intriguing. You see that kind of thing? Inciting people directly. It cannot be the case that there are no adults in the room. Do you see? So from a pure regulatory point of view, we are happy, and we're not going to make a comment on it, that Sule and the GJ and the others say, we've come to a certain point that we've got to be careful. Why is that important? They are at the forefront of free expression. Where there is doubt between responsibility and free expression, if I'm in civil society, I'll lean towards free expression. So when you see the biggest free expression institution in West Africa say you've come to a point that we're going to draw the line, it means that you're already far beyond the line. And this is why we made this point, not about him, but just for all of us to see that the standards are being crossed all over. At a certain point, there will be accountability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sapong. Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zainab Mohammed, speaking on behalf of Cybersecurity Authority. Countering hate speech and polarized narratives. We can take the fact that artificial intelligence plays a role in this. With the introduction and modernization of artificial intelligence, such as deepfakes and fake news, that can actually generate hate speech and polarized narratives and be spread in our digital environment. We will all attest to the fact that we've moved from analog or traditional media to the digital era. And most of the communications are done via the media space, social media, WhatsApp, Facebook, and all that. Now, as part of our constitutional mandate, as the Cybersecurity Authority, we are mandated to protect our digital environment, the public, government, children, and the businesses. As part of our activities, which is National Cybersecurity Awareness Month every October, this year our team is combating misinformation, disinformation in a digitally resilient Ghana, our collective responsibility. Now, if you look at the team, it tallies with your team, and we are ever ready. Our doors are open to help you and the newly launched coalition to ensure that our digital environment is free from hate speech and polarizing narratives. That is our commitment. And if there's any institution here which wants our expertise free of charge, info@csa.gov.gh. This is our commitment to the coalition, to our security services, to media, to ensure that we promote our secure digital Ghana.
Thank you so much. Safo Kantanka, please brief, straight to the point. Movement for change, straight to the point. Straight to the point.
I really don't know why they are giving me plenty disclaimers. Quick one. Over the past week, I've had to turn down so many media invitations because they were going to ask me what I think, whether Napo is arrogant or not. So here is the question. When you producers, when you media houses are coming up with these questions, with these issues, I know there are certain, at the regulatory level, you have certain umpires, certain, like you are supposed to educate, entertain, and all those principles. How do you manage to play in between these principles when you are coming out with issues for public consumption? I want to make it simple. Is that clear enough?
Yes, I think so. Did you understand his question? He is saying that we have a mandate. We have a mandate to educate, entertain, and inform. But when you are making a decision in between those lines and saying things about others that will be derogatory in the public space. How do you go about it, mindful of these three structures that you operate within?
Yeah, because they are usually inviting people to come and make comments that do not serve the Ghanaian need now. We need development, we need all those livelihood issues, but you go and they're asking, is Napo arrogant or not?
Okay, so we are live on Ghana television, and as we know, their news at 2 will be going, so they will be wrapping up soon. So please, a quick one so that we call it a day. Just a second, a brief commitment statement from the media houses.
Oh, please give me the opportunity to say a few things. I hope to be as brief as possible. Okay. Well, I commit, our station is committed to self-regulation, gatekeeping, and ensuring that the right content, non-incendiary content goes on air. Thanks.
Okay, same commitment. We're also looking at a very balanced reportage, and in terms of balance, like my lecturer said again, that will give the opportunity to those watching as the viewers and the general Ghanaian public to also state what they want us to do. Thank you.
At Media General, we commit to putting out fair, accurate reportage devoid of bullets. It's ballots and not bullets. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. And at Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, as always, we also commit to what we've been doing already: objectivity, integrity, accountability, transparency, fairness, accuracy, timeliness, confidentiality, continuous learning, responsible reportage, clear communication. Thank you for the opportunity, Media Foundation for West Africa and all partners.
And finally, at Kansas City Media, we are also committed to ensuring that the content and the rhetorics that go on air are some things that will help the nation, put the nation at peace, and allow the nation to move on. I mean, the way we all want the nation to move on. Nobody wants, and we are not even allowing any incendiary attacks or anything. We are not allowing anybody to, come and give invectives and those things. No, we are only going to ensure that the broadcasting standards are adhered to, and that Ghana will be the winner in the end.
Thank you very much. We'll hold you to those standards. I have been doing this with Dr. Moses Okai with the Kansas City Media Group, Oman FM. He's the programs manager. Rebecca Ekpe is the editor-in-chief of GBC Online. Martin is Siedu Data with the political desk of Media General. And Ifo Mensah, the news editor for UTV Ghana, part of the Despite Media Group. My name is Rebecca Iwa. Thank you so much for your audience. our God, please, Sankofa Yenchi. My very good friend, Henry Kojo Agbai, is a Radio Gold, network broadcasting, right? Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your audience. I hand over to Abigail Lavi, the MC.
Thank you, Becky. I would invite Rosemond Ebi Ajo Aite, my colleague, Senior Program Manager, Institutional Development, to do the vote of thanks. But let me acknowledge the presence of Oxfam Ghana, and also the RTI Commission was here. Thank you very much. Rosemond, please.
Distinguished guests, speakers, ladies and gentlemen, as we bring down the curtain on today's program, I think it's important that we take a moment or two to acknowledge everyone who has come on board to make this forum such a huge success. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge Ford Foundation for their support. Definitely also, I would like to share heartfelt thanks to the National Peace Council, represented here by Mr. George Amo and his team. Thank you all so much for the support towards the formation of the coalition, towards this forum and the upcoming events that my executive director mentioned. Mr. George Sapon, thank you so much. We know that your schedule is always full and busy, but you made time to be here. Thank you, sir, for your presence. To our esteemed chair and deputy chair of the National Multi-Stakeholder Coalition, thank you, and to all the members as well, thank you for availing yourselves for this important national duty. As Abigail said, we have been here for the past couple of hours, but the information and the critical message has been disseminated and put out there through GBC. So definitely would like to thank GBC for the collaboration, to the Director General and to all the staff, both on-site and off-site, who have facilitated this smooth transmission. To the panelists and also the political party reps who were here, we've had a very engaging conversation. Thank you all. We hope that the message will not stop here and that you will continue this conversation and be the champions for peaceful narratives and narratives that are socially cohesive for us to attain peaceful elections in December. Let me also take the time to acknowledge staff of Media Foundation for West Africa. We have been working behind the scenes to make this work. So to all staff of MFWA, thank you so much for your tireless efforts. I would also like to acknowledge the distinguished personalities who have been part of the program today. Shiraj, General Coleman, everyone, thank you so much for being here. And to all attendees, you've stayed with us through the program. This signifies your commitment to addressing the challenges that have been discussed here. So thank you all. And in concluding, please let's not the conversation end here. Let's continue to have it in our networks and in our homes so that we can have a peaceful election. Thank you all.
Okay, all right. So it's a wrap, and we are leaving with a message that is issues, not insults. Oh, okay. So I forgot. IDEG is here. I'm told Abantu for Development is also here. It's important that we acknowledge all. Please, lunch is served. It's packed. Okay, outside. So please grab